Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you might be in the world. Here we are, and I thought about wearing black, so this is close enough for black for today. Today is the day after NPRM Comments Day, and we're at 50,000 comments, but we'll unpack that a little bit more later. We're joined this evening by usual suspects +1, and the +1 is Ash Ha, who has rather shook the tree, and I think has been rather unkind to an Indiegogo project. And yeah, after you, Ash, the what is a Microdrone 4?
Microdrone 4.
So much better than the Microdrone 3, nearly as good as an Inspire, I believe.
According to the release promo video, yeah, it was compared in video footage to the Inspire. But if you look closely at that video, which is still on YouTube, you'll notice that the Inspire footage doesn't look very Inspire-y. Looks like it's been degraded. A bit naughty.
So I think it went about 1.8 million, didn't it? $1.8 million, wasn't it, or pounds?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit confusing because it was actually dual crowdfunded. It was crowdfunded on, I think, a Chinese platform at the same time as Indiegogo. So actually, I think the total was about 3 million total. Tens of thousands of people invested in this drone based on the specifications that they shared initially. And those specifications primarily were 120 grams in weight, a 12 megapixel camera, which is stated clearly in the 2 promotional videos, which are still on the YouTube channel of the campaign owner, Extreme Flyers. 13-minute flight time, and those specifications 9 months later have changed.
So when was this crowdfunder again? Because this must have been about the same time as that little tiny DJI thing came out.
Well, ironically, no. At the time, the Mavic Mini wasn't out. It wasn't known. Nobody knew it was coming. This is in January 2019 that the campaign launched. The marketing blurb clearly stated, we've got screenshots of this, guaranteed for June 2019 delivery. They use the word guaranteed. So most backers, that means no question about it. And we're now in March 2020, and to this date, nobody has received that drone. But not only that, the campaign owners have changed the specification. They've edited the campaign page. Everybody's got screenshots of before and after. The flight time has gone from 13 minutes to 10. The weight has gone from 120 grams to 170. And the 12 megapixel camera has gone down to a 5 megapixel camera, on the basis that the campaign owner stated that they tested both and found that there was no difference between the two.
But of course, and changing an Indiegogo page, these crowdfunding things leave me a little bit cold. Surely that's against their terms and conditions. Surely you can't move the goalposts once you're started.
You would think so, wouldn't you? But unfortunately, Indiegogo won't reply to this complaint that I made months ago to them, that campaign owners shouldn't be able to make any edits. The campaign page should be locked down, like when you approve a change request in any organization. If you can amend the contents of that change request after it's been approved by everybody, what's the point of having it approved? The point is the campaign page has been changed so substantially that the elements that sold this campaign to the tens of thousands of backers are gone. The fact that it weighed 120 grams was a massive benefit, to these guys who wanted something truly lightweight. And it's not truly lightweight anymore. It's approaching that kind of limit, that scary 250 gram point. And bearing in mind, we've still not seen a production drone. So this 170 grams may not be the final weight. Flight time down to 10 minutes. I mean, by the time you've launched the thing, this is a manufacturer's quote of 10 minutes. We all know that 10 minutes from a manufacturer means 8, maybe less.
Yes.
If you're lucky.
Yeah.
I just feel sorry for the tens of thousands of backers. This campaign's gone on 9 months now without delivery. And so I put together a video that collated the observations of the backers, my observations as well. Everything's completely evidenced. And I'm very careful to do that, because when you make claims, you have to evidence it. Otherwise, you have accusations of libel and defamation. So I'm very, very careful to evidence everything, witness testimony from the backers, screenshots from the campaign, and their own promotional videos. It's all in the video I put out there. And the campaign went crazy after that because the campaign owner started trolling. The campaign owner, Vernon, spent literally all of yesterday trolling across Twitter, Facebook, claiming that I'm lying, my video is full of incorrect mistruths, that I'm being paid by DJI, apparently, to say bad things about manufacturers. That I'm under NDA by DJI to say bad things. You know, when I review a pre-release for DJI, you're asked to sign an NDA, which asks you not to disclose any details about that product at the time of reviewing. As soon as that product launches, the NDA is closed and gone. It's no longer relevant. I am under no NDA to say anything about any manufacturer. I'm a neutral reviewer. In fact, my video before the Microdrone 4 video was talking about Mavic Minis dropping into the sea. So
yeah,
shill. Payroll.
Shill, yeah. Shill for the seaside, yes. But you've done a great job over the years, and long may these sort of con drones continue, because they're keeping your channel going there, Ash. Because you're the person that's brave enough to no, this is a great channel, but you are brave enough to confront these things. So fair play to you. Does someone else want to pick this up from after me?
It's funny. I've been following Ash on this quite some time. I haven't commented up on it. Obviously, Ash disappeared into the wilderness for a little bit of time, and but every now and again you'd see him pop back up and make a comment, and it's interesting. I had followed it, and I put some comments on this today. What I hate about this whole thing is people getting ripped off, and it's not the first time. It's Lily, it's Plexi Drone, it's Zano, it's all of these things where wild and ridiculous claims are made, and it's okay for us, you know, and probably about 60% of the drone industry are technically savvy enough to go, this is bullshit. We can see it's nonsense, it doesn't make sense. But it's the people who get drawn in, and the Zano was exactly the same. There was some outlandish claims of tracking capabilities, flying capabilities, and I've spent a bit of time tonight looking at this, and I think, to be fair, I'm not going to class this in the same situation as, say, Plexi Drone, because that seems to have been an out-and-out scam to take money from people and not deliver. At the end of the day, these guys do seem to have done something, but they've clearly taken what they did the first time and pushed the marketing so far that they're now unable to deliver. And there is a point where you have to admit that. And they are at that point, and that's the problem they've got now, you know.
Although, you know, just to add, I agree that it's not an out-and-out scam. However, you might remember Microdrone 3, which was just as frustrating and disastrous for the backers. And in fact, CEO Vernon has started now sharing personal messages and saying that I've sent him a whole whirlwind of abuse, apparently. And yet the abuse that I apparently sent him in the screenshot that he shared publicly on Twitter is from a year ago, where Vernon asked me for my opinion on the video quality from his prototype. I replied, it's not very good. It's pretty bad, actually, and it's full of jello. Vernon replied, okay, I'll take a look. That's abuse, apparently. And yet, ironically, when they released just to give the rest of the story, 3 weeks ago, he released video footage on board from the first production model, and the backers are devastated. It's meant to be 1080p, meant to be 12 megapixels. It looks like, he described it in the campaign as buttery smooth cinematic video. There's nothing cinematic about that.
It is shocking. I had a good look there, and I was watching some of the comments, and I've read a lot of the stuff he's been posting, and the sad fact is that isn't a way to deal with this situation. Okay, if you're going to go on Indiegogo and go out there, like, you're going to ask the public for money. The second you do that, you lose the right to hide behind the anonymity and the right to say, we're a private company, we'll release when we release. At the end of the day, it's public money based on delivering a product based on people supporting them. So they have to keep those people involved and support them and give them the information when it's going and what's happening. And for him to come out and say some of that stuff, it's not how you run a company. It's certainly not how you run a drone company. But, you know, it makes some of the stuff Elon Musk has said over the years look very, very mild, you know.
I must say, looking at some of his tweets yesterday, he's on a rampage,
Yeah.
and it reminds me very much of Trump. There's people in the world that shouldn't have a Twitter account. Sorry to say it, but yeah, some of these tweets are just outlandish, and this guy needs PR representation because he is now into defamation territory. He's saying I'm a liar, that I'm taking kickbacks, that I'm being paid by other companies, that I'm, this and that. And quite frankly, it is defamation, and I won't accept that. So I sent him a warning tonight. If he continues, then he will get a letter from a lawyer, because that's not how a CEO should respond to.
But hasn't he got $3 million to fight you with?
Not after 9 months.
Yeah, and I've just been looking on the website. The interesting thing is, actually, this is another one which scares me. This started in Jan 2018. They say on their site, prototyping of micro drone 4.0 kickoff January 2018, and we are now March 20. So what, that's no standard development time. What have they been doing in that time? Okay, they took the money middle of last year, let's say, by the time they got their hands on it. So, okay, 12 months. It's £1 million or so showing on the UK page. Okay, that doesn't go that far, let's be honest, when you're dealing with manufacturing and things like that. But at the end of the day, they've had ample time to be able to deliver something to someone. I think the problem here isn't the product, it's what they've promised it'll do, because it just won't be capable. That's the problem.
Yeah, exactly. And I just feel so sorry for the backers. If you look at the comments on the Indiegogo page, almost every single comment that the backers of this campaign are making, Vernon replies to them quoting my name. It's my fault, apparently.
Yeah.
That's all right. We know now then.
Yeah, exactly. It's all my fault.
Yeah.
I've given him a right to reply. I've said, okay, give me a concise response to my video that responds to every single point that I've made. Bearing in mind, these are not my points, my observations. These are observations from the backers that I clearly screenshot and evidence in that video. And to this day, he has not provided anything other than a response to my comments about the budget drone, his video having better quality than the sample footage that he released.
Yeah. It smells off, and that's the part of it. You look at it, it smells off. My biggest issue is this whole crowdfunding system. How any of this is allowed to happen. If you take Plexidrone, he was allowed to get away with that. And don't get me wrong, Plexidrone was a bit dodgier because he was also taking a lot of money through his own website as well, direct orders from consumers. So those guys have just as many different issues with rights as well as the guys on the thing. But how Indiegogo can sit back, how they're allowed to just say, oh, we're gonna allow these guys to advertise, we're going to allow these guys to publish, we're going to support them, we're going to highlight them. Yet when it all goes wrong, don't blame us. Nothing to do with me. Sorry, fella.
To this day, Plexidrone hasn't shipped anything to anybody, has it?
No. And
didn't it ship some arms?
Arms, actually, yeah. They got some motor pods and arms.
Some arms.
Yeah.
Because they were so nice, you could then just stroke them and wait for the rest of it to arrive.
And the belief is they only went to people who'd bought via the website because they can argue they shipped something, therefore card processing can't be sent back. And that's the old skit. Because it's the same as someone who ships you something which wasn't what you ordered. They'll ship you a piece of paper in an envelope because from Amazon's point of view or something like that, something shipped, and it's a lot harder to argue. Yeah. Interestingly, you look at an interesting point Ash made in his video, which I really liked, was the guys who supported this. Interesting, Colin Gwynn, there's a video as part of the Indiegogo. Sim saying he supports it, involved. You look at reviews, and we had this as well with the Zano, that it won Best in Show without ever having flown. How is any of this possible?
So this microdrone 4 won an award at CES a few months ago for Best Value Drone. Now, this is again another mistruth of the campaign, because they marketed it as a CES award. It wasn't a CES award. It was given by a magazine called Rotor Drone. Rotor Drone magazine gave them the award at CES.
At CES.
Yes.
Well, yes.
Talk about this not being a scam, but actually there are two big issues there. Colin Quinn is a former DJI CEO, I think North America. They marketed that video as DJI CEO endorses Microdrone 4. And I emailed Vernon immediately and said, this is a scam. He's not the DJI CEO. He's a former CEO who apparently...
Technically, he was never that, but that's a whole other rabbit hole as well. Yeah.
He was not exactly, he didn't sacked, I believe, but I think he was asked to leave. They corrected that shortly after I raised it. The other part is this Inspire footage, which, I'm sorry, but to split screen with Inspire footage that's clearly been downgraded. If you search on YouTube for testing microdrones, for that video now, watch that. About halfway through, it shows a split screen with apparently Inspire footage. If that looks like Inspire footage to you guys,
no, I had to look over it all, and it stinks. What he needs to do now is come clean. You know, if you're going to be active, you're going to have to come clean and say, what's the score with this? Is it going to be delivered? This is what the product's going to be. Okay, I can sort of get where I know what they're saying with his camera thing, and it's a bit of a play on words that, where he's saying, we tried a better camera, it isn't needed. And the reality of that is because if 1080p is actually lower resolution than 5 megapixel. So what he's saying is there's no point having a higher resolution camera because we're not doing it. But it's a cop out to say
that's the video. Remember, that's the video, not for photos.
Not for photos, exactly. And that's where it loses on stills. But yeah, it's a sad state of affairs.
So you guys are fussy. What a fussy bunch you are. You're living the dream. He's selling a dream. You had the dream. You got your pleasure. That's it. Write it off.
It is sad, isn't it? You know, a lot of these guys have now written off the investment. There's actually a Facebook group called Microdrone for Disappointment. And those guys, you know, a lot of them are just saying now, I've written this off. I know I'm not going to get my money or the drone.
But that was it was a clever price point though as well, wasn't it? Because it wasn't so much. It wasn't like $90,000, $200 or something.
$200 roughly, wasn't it? Yeah.
So it's sort of money that you might think, oh well, stuff it.
You see, now they can go and buy a Drone X HD Pro, and they'll be really happy.
Well, and they use exactly the same marketing thing with ex-DJI employees were amazed or whatever it was. Yeah, so we had to. So, all right, I've backed it on Indiegogo. I don't like the idea now. I want my money back. What happens?
Well, a number of people are trying the chargeback route, which has actually succeeded for them, whereby they contact their bank. The bank reverse that payment, which I didn't even know was possible. And that actually imposes a charge on the campaign owner. I believe it's a $20 charge or so per chargeback. So that costs the campaign a bit of money. But I have to say, based on Microdrone 3, Vernon has started sharing these private messages that me and him had a year ago. So I thought, okay, I'll do the same. And I shared one earlier where he admitted that the gimbal that he released and sent to backers for Microdrone 3 wasn't very good. But he said, hey ho, we moved on to Microdrone 4 anyway. So in other words, wrote off the dreams of the Microdrone 3 backers in that campaign and cracked on with the next project. Is
there any sort of evidence, because, you know, obviously we're all interested in the drone things on Indiegogo and other crowdfunding sites are available. But is there evidence, other things, I don't know, watches, bicycles, whatever else people are trying to fund there? Is there evidence of scams appearing in other marketplaces as well on these crowdfunding sites?
I'm sure, yeah.
Yeah, have you seen the Water Seer? Watch Thunderfoot channel, Water Seer. There's a whole lot of these things which promise things which violate the laws of thermodynamics. Yet people go ahead and put money in. You know, like you could crowdfund a perpetual motion machine. People would pay money to do it, and of course the sort of, you know, you promote something that's impossible. Gullible people buy into it. You extend, and then you shut up shop, and that's it. You've had your holidays and your Porsches and things. You move on to the next crowdfunded project. It's like it's a lifestyle. It's a profession now. Is crowdfunding stuff that can never be delivered.
It is.
I think we mentioned this last time. Sorry, Ash, but I think we said last time we came on, I think we are actually missing a trick. We need to be part of this action. We need to start a crowdfunding site of some or other sort and emulate this fantastic business success where we're not responsible for anything, yet we take a percentage of something. It's a fantastic idea.
You know why the platform doesn't care? Because they take a percentage as well. I think it's 5%.
Yeah.
So that's why they'll never just kick a project off their platform, because they're kicking out their own revenues.
There has to be some regulation for this. You know, in the UK, okay, we've got certain levels of protection, as Ash will know. You know, we're probably better placed than anyone, especially if you're going to back one of these things. Do it with a credit card, do it with a bank account. But the rest of the world doesn't have the consumer laws the UK has, and that's the problem. And the US, they're far behind what we have over here, and it's a shame. It's funny enough, I'm just looking on his comments. He posted just 8 minutes ago about that they're continuing to do updates on the footage, and we're going to. There's no color grading is going to make any difference to detail. No, color grading is going to help. Vibrations coming from the propellers. So you've manufactured a product that you show a video to the entire world, and you're saying you put unbalanced props on it. Well, what?
Of course you did. Of course.
Yeah. You know.
And I have to say, you know what? You scroll through that comments feed on Indiegogo. There are hundreds of comments posted every single day, and I give it to the backers. They're not stupid. They've watched the video I put out there, and they all support me. None of them support them. There's only one.
You could crowdfund some sort of defense.
Yeah, well, I mean, you tend to find, you know, I deal in these crowdfund projects a lot. You find a lot of Stockholm syndrome, which is ironic since I've moved to Sweden. But you do generally find Stockholm syndrome amongst backers, because they are so wanting to live this dream, this product. You find there are a lot of armchair backers. You know, they're sat there probably in retirement, lucky gits, very envious. They've got a lot of disposable income, and they just literally spend their days browsing these sites and investing. And a lot of people that invested in Microdrone 4 had also invested in Microdrone 3, and yet they hadn't learnt their lesson. And you see their comments, they say, I thought I'd give him a second chance because Microdrone 3 wasn't very good. I'll try again with Microdrone 4. They don't learn their lesson, and I find it so frustrating. The only way for these people to learn, sadly, sometimes, is to lose their money, and that's such a sad ending, isn't it?
So these people have Stockholm syndrome, but Ash enjoys a bit of Schadenfreude.
So we're 1 and 2 crowdfunded. We're 1 and 2 crowdfunded as well.
I don't think 1 or 2 were. Microdrone 3 definitely was, and I was one of the earliest reviewers of Microdrone 3, and I have to say I went through about 4 or 5 of them, because just as I was about to review them, one of them actually started to almost set light. That was a terrible drone, and the gimbal was promised as an axis mechanical gimbal. It ended up being a 1-axis mechanical gimbal. I mean, and even Vernon admitted in a comment that I've just shared on Twitter, he wasn't very impressed with the product that he sent out. So, as a campaign owner, to admit that you're not happy with the product you sent out to your backers as the finished item, and just so you know, he's still trolling me on Twitter now. It's non-stop. He don't give up. He's obsessed with me. I'm going to get a restraining order, not a defamation case.
you won't get anything done on Twitter like that. You know, they'll love it. You'll be trending very shortly. It's just a shame with that.
Here's the twist. There's a photography show in Birmingham in 2 weeks' time at the NEC. Guess who's exhibiting there with a nice big stand, probably funded by backers' revenue?
Yeah.
Guess what the marketing materials will say in the promotional video. Guess what the promo video says that's embedded into his exhibitor entry on that website? It says 12 megapixel camera, the weight being 120 grams, etc., etc.
Yeah.
I wonder when they bought all that signage then.
And what do we think? One of those stands is a good 5K from my experience, plus minimum size is about 4 or 5K, probably closer to 10.
And we know what events are like these days. They're desperate for revenue, so they won't think about boycotting an exhibitor if they're flashing the cash.
No.
I just please look through the comments on that Indiegogo campaign. And I notified the BBC 2 days ago, and I'm really impressed with Jones. He's one of the most senior BBC technical reporters. He took the case up immediately and published an article today. He did his own investigation. he looked at my video, but he came to his own conclusions that the video was not buttery smooth and that it's terrible quality. And yet, Vernon, you would have thought that'd be a reality check being featured on a BBC news article. But within minutes of that being published, Vernon was back on Twitter, back on the Indiegogo Facebook pages as well, trolling, saying that I'm still making up lies and that none of my video is true.
To be fair, you are, but no.
Yeah, other than that,
The only reason that video looks so bad is because it's in the wake of an airliner that's just flown past.
I suppose, where do they go next? So where does this stand? Okay, you have a community that is clearly upset with them. You've only got to read the comments. You have a product which is potentially heading towards a year over, as it stands today. So where does this end? Does this end for? Do they need to come out and say we're going to ship in the next 30 days? Do they need to say, right, guys, this? I think the only fair way to do this is for them to say, right, here's what we're going to deliver. Use the footage. Anyone who isn't happy, we will refund your money. And that's the only way they can recover themselves now.
Well, that's what old Helen Grenner did, didn't she, with the Roomba lady? Can you remember the thing that they tried to crowdfund? I can't remember the name of their company now, but they had a drone that they were crowdfunding, and they decided it was too hard, and they refunded everybody.
Yeah.
Fair you know what? If he started refunding the people that wanted out of this campaign, it would not only shut them up and stop them from commenting, but it would appease them and keep them happy, allowing the people that want to remain in there to remain, potentially to get their drone and to learn their lesson. Because if Microdrone 4 is anything like the earlier products, they won't be happy. I wasn't. I had multiple Microdrone 3s. I don't anymore. None of them fly.
No. You know, and all it's going to take is something like a new Tello to really knock them sideways. Because look, it's somewhere between the mini. Yeah, I think the mini's probably a bit. You know, if we look at the price wise, it's close.
$100 more. No, the retail price of Microdrone 4 is $350.
$350. Yeah.
After the campaign, retail is $350. For an extra $100, $50, you can get a Mavic Mini.
You know, it's not.
Ian, you weren't supposed to mention. You remember the NDA you signed? You're not supposed to mention the new Tello.
That one. No, I'm saying.
Yeah, the new Tello. We heard it here first. Well done, Bruce. Well picked up.
I'm under many NDAs, but not for that one. It's interesting because I did read the comments about it being a shill for DJI, and I've been accused of that more than anyone, quite rightly. And for there are many reasons why. You know, as Ash said with NDAs, I probably have about 11 I'm under right now. Not once have I ever been asked to post on or about against another company. It's not what they're about. NDAs are simply to stop you talking about a product before it's released, and that's all it's about. And
but I think you can out nut job Ash though. You do have some special nut jobs chasing you around.
Oh, I have some proper nut jobs out chasing me. Yeah.
You can out nut. You know, Bruce probably has them as well.
Bruce is You know, I've had my family threatened, burned down, and my house threatened, and all sorts. Yeah. But that's over the years I've been involved in various groups and stuff. But yeah, there is, to say you're a shill for DJI is quite funny. When you review products, you're accused of all sorts of things. No company.
We put ourselves out there when we put ourselves on YouTube, and we ultimately just have to make sure that what we say is honest and sincere and evidenced. And I have absolutely no regrets about anything I've said in that video or any other video, because it goes back to the point that you never say anything, whether it's on Facebook or YouTube or elsewhere, that you wouldn't be happy to say in court. And I could quite happily voice exactly what I say in that video in court, but not only voice it, but evidence it and get witnesses as well to verify and back up that claim. Whereas the defamatory statements he's making about me on Twitter right now, he cannot evidence. No. And in fact, just a funny story. I had a troll about a year ago who was trolling over YouTube. Then he decided to start trolling all over my Facebook groups and our official Facebook page. There's a guy in the USA, thought that he could hide behind his keyboard. I found out who he was. I found out where he worked, in a hospital in America. I phoned up the hospital, managed to speak to his manager, his boss, and said, "Are you aware that this guy is sending me threatening posts during work time?" He sent my wife a private message on Facebook saying that I was cheating on her. And the guy got a stern warning, and I never heard from him ever again. For people that think they can hide behind their keyboard, you can't.
Ash,
Bloody hell! Yeah, that is his name. How do you? Same guy. Yeah, he works in a hospital in America.
you know, I was talking about family.
Yeah.
There you go.
That guy was
The second you
I found out-
said, yeah,
found out
honestly,
where he
mate,
is.
you have no idea. There's a rabbit hole I've been down for 4 years with this one.
I feel a little bit left out now.
If you want
Yeah, I
anything
don't feel special. I don't feel special,
I'm not
Gary.
feeling special at all now.
I can tell you where he works. I've got his home address. I can.
Oh, yes.
more than happy
Oh,
to use
yes.
his name as well.
That's a conversation we'll have to have off here one day.
Wow, it's a small world. Seeing that name again. I'd even
Oh,
forgotten that name.
yes.
You know, I teach STEM at a local school, and for the last week we've been talking about being kind online and what you must say online and your digital footprint and all that sort of thing. And their eyes get bigger and bigger. I feel really sorry for this generation because they're the first generation that's going to have this following them through their work life. And you're allowed to say things when you're 11, 12 and 13 that might be a bit outlandish, 14, 15, 16. But unfortunately, you would have said them in the playground years ago, and that would have been it. Would have been gone. You know, it would have been dreadful. Would have been dealt with, gone. But now it's there forever, and
Very
a big
scary.
problem for them. It is very scary, and the fact that and scary is that the same blokes come up in our. You're not going to know, dear viewer, but the name was named in our private chat here, and it's.
Very
I'm
scary.
bearing in mind, me and Ash have never met. We've never discussed this until now.
I don't know. You're both DJI shills.
Yeah.
Oh, it's all coming together. It's all coming together.
And the guy's a doctor. Who'd have thought?
Yeah.
Yeah, Lily and Rybat's mentioning Lily drone in that misleading video, which I can't remember now. It's so long ago, wasn't it? Was it a film of the Phantom, wasn't it, or something? When they chucked it off a bridge, and they also I can't remember.
That's
It was all
right.
that
Threw it off the bridge and
skiing.
it's supposed to self-launch itself, etc.
It flew off out of the water with the canoe and all that, didn't it? And yeah. But
Good
Lily
old
was,
days of Lily.
yeah, that's back in the
This
day,
is why,
mate.
you know, these people, in some respects, I hope that the end is nigh for crowdfunding. I'm sad to say it because that or crowdfunding should be reserved for non-established organizations. In other words, some a great idea. It should not be used by companies. I noticed a big manufacturer recently crowdfunding. I think it was Siemens or Samsung.
Yeah,
One of the camera manufacturers.
camera
has done it.
manufacturers has, and one of the gimbal, a couple of gimbal manufacturers have as well. I'm trying to think who it was.
But don't you do it to sort of fish around to see what the market's interested in?
Yeah, I think they do, sadly. And it's a way of generating revenue when the business don't want to give them any budget, isn't it? That's
Yeah.
what we're getting onto.
Was it Canon, Ian?
It was one of them. Yeah, it was. I'm looking now. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to sign it. I think for some companies they can use it as basis for their shareholders or at least their product managers to say there's enough in this that we can get a return. And look, you know, if Canon did a crowdfunding, I would have no issues backing it. If Sony, if someone like that is doing it and they turn around and say, we've got this great idea, we're not sure it's viable, what we'd like to do is crowdfund it to get it over the line, I'd have no issues doing that. It's this constant new company with massive amounts of this is the best thing ever, this is going to change the world, this is better than a DJI, this is, you know, DJI have the gorilla in the room. They're the biggest in the industry. They don't get everything right, but they deliver a product that for the most part does everything most people want it to do. And these companies come along and say, is this the next killer? Is this going to beat that?
Yeah.
And it's madness. It's like saying I'm going to develop a car and I'm going to be better than Ford tomorrow.
What irritates me as well, Skydio. More is that these media publications are so quick to promote campaigns like this on launch, and then that's the last time that media outlet talks about the campaign. Same with Xano.
Xano was the big one, wasn't it? Who backed Xano?
Xano.
Someone gave Xano a lot. One of the big tech websites gave them a huge amount of.
They all did. Xano started this. Xano was going to be the first micro, tiny little drone with a GPS. A good quality camera. Xano started this idea for other drones market-leading wannabes to crowdfund an idea that nobody else wants to invest in. And just so the CEO of Extreme Flyers was on Dragon's Den, coincidentally.
I saw that, yeah.
10 years ago, they all declined to invest. Probably out of that now, looking back.
It is interesting when you look at these things, and it's just, I think crowdfunding is only safe from a company you know. I think that if it's someone new making promises, I think you've got to be very, very skeptical. I'm trying to think, can anyone think of a single successful product that's been crowdfunded?
Don't think there has been in our world.
There was, I mean, AirDog was pretty successful in the drone sector, at least. It was one of the drones to have a tracking bracelet that you put on your hand, and it tracked you, using just that. It wasn't particularly cinematic tracking, but it was quite successful. They then had AirDog 2, which they also crowdfunded, but wasn't that popular.
Yeah, electronics has had a lot of successful crowdfunding because, generally speaking, the path is very straightforward, and you can build a prototype and prove everything before you go to the funding. Really only covers the manufacturing and the distribution. It doesn't cover the development quite so much. So many of the small electronic projects have been really successful.
Yeah, it shouldn't cover the design, and this is the other problem with Microdrone 4. They claimed it was production ready. That was back in January a year ago.
Yes.
It's just, as you say, you can just feel sorry for the people, and it just bewilders me. I never have the cash to put down and just sort of gamble on these sort of things, because that's you should be prepared to lose your money when you put it down. It's just a shame.
I think they've got to come out all out now and say, this is what, I think the only salvation for them now, if they want to continue, is to release what they're going to release, give full updates to people, and as you say, start refunding the people who want out, and then give people the opportunity to make the choice. And that's the only way you can do this fairly.
Yeah,
that's an interesting comment down from Jonah Drones. Anger to launch present. That's interesting. That's very interesting. Very interesting, John of Drones. Very interesting. I don't know anything about that new thing, but I don't suppose anything's moving out of China at the moment. Anyway, what was I going to say? Well,
the mention of certain pathogens moving out of China.
Human malware.
Don't mention that. Don't mention that. Don't mention the war. Don't mention that.
Human malware. That's what we're going to call
Human malware is what we're supposed to call it. That'll probably be demonetized anyway.
Just have to add a bit of a plug in here.
Go ahead.
Sean from Geeksvana, who's in the chat, runs a brilliant channel on YouTube, and he managed to interview Vernon today. So Sean's interview, I believe, will be live later tonight, probably. So that will be one to watch.
There we are.
I haven't seen it yet. It sounds very, very interesting.
If you feel sharp pains, that'll be as he's pushing the pins in the doll. It's got to be during that. That's what it'll be. Maybe
I should crowdfund some droning on voodoo dolls.
Exactly right. It's great merch for your viewers. I mean, we'd all love one of Ian, that's for sure. And very much many people would like one of Bruce. That's for sure. I can't wait to make them. But we briefly touched on DJI again, as ever, as continually through this. Did we all see today their idea of how bad the remote ID is going to be, and interestingly, how much they think it's going to cost? And they think instead of the $2.50 per person per year, it's going to be more like $9.60, I think it was. I wrote it down. No, $9.83. So obviously that has huge implications. Here we are the day after those comments close, only 50-odd thousand, and I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed at that number. It doesn't seem like many to me.
It is, and if you just look at if we just look at the drone groups, the official DJI owners group has over 70,000 members in itself. That's one of 9 or 11 groups they have. If you take into account Facebook, AMA, BFMA, all of the American sites include BFMA. It's a drop in the ocean. It's a drop. In fact, the commercial drones group in the US has over 10,000, I think it was when I checked last. So, yeah, it's barely anyone, unfortunately.
Yes, 97% of all drone owners in the USA support the NPRM because only 3% issued a submission.
Yes.
And that's what's going to come.
That's exactly how it's going to be played, isn't it? 97% must approve. Yes, it's exactly how it's going to play out, sadly. I've seen today, I saw some quite interesting comments that I thought were very well measured, but a couple of weeks ago, I saw some truly dreadful comments.
There are some cracking comments in there Bruce was sharing as well.
I tweeted a couple brilliant ones. Brilliant. They'll change the face of the hobby.
Yeah.
There was some, what are you smoking, I think was one of them. What
well,
right. You have to excuse my ignorance on this. And I did have a break away from the drone sector for moving house, literally 5 months or so. Well, I'm back now. The whole remote ID thing evolved while I was away, but I understand I haven't really investigated it yet, but the FAA move it's an American thing. Remote ID is not going to impact outside of the US, right, at this time?
No.
But we're American.
Well, no, it is in Europe. It is in Europe.
Yeah.
Perhaps even in
where
Sweden,
America goes, the world follows.
Not being enforced by the CAA or the...
Yeah. So Europe, it comes into law, including the UK, from July 2020 for all of the new classes of aircraft. But the basics for Europe is simple. The new class of aircraft, which will get far more relaxed permissions, will have to have a broadcast remote ID, which is the aircraft transmitting. People who do not want to fly the new aircraft, have the existing aircraft, or want to fly without the newer permissions can continue. There's no restriction. So the easiest way to look at Europe is to do what you're doing today as a hobby operator. Nothing changes. If you buy one of the new class C1, C2, C3 aircraft, which will allow you to fly in the new areas that are defined in Europe, they will have to have the remote ID. But what you're basically doing is if you comply, you get more permission than you get today. So it's a balanced approach, to be fair, in the sense of you're going to continue to be able to fly your FPV aircraft, your fixed wing, all of your normal hobby RC without any problems for now.
But the invitation for comments was the FAA, right?
This is the US, yeah. Now, what the US have done, have come out with their own regulation, or their proposal, which is taking what Europe have put into law, timesing it by 10, mandatory introduction of broadcast and network remote ID for the most part, which means every aircraft must either connect to the internet to be able to fly at all times. Any aircraft that doesn't support remote ID will only be allowed to fly in specific flight locations, of which they're only going to allow a limited number to exist, basically. And that is everything.
And the special secret sources there, you've got a year. If this rolls in, you've got a year to say, this is my flying site.
Yeah.
And if your flying site gets built on, the neighbors complain or whatever. So it doesn't have to be AMA. CBOs also needs to go. Anyway, so you submit your flying site. But if it goes away, you're not allowed. After the year, no more submissions for flying sites. That's it. 1 year. Yep. Tick, 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 tick. And that's it. Once that's done, so it's sort of inbuilt that that model aircraft flying will go away, because those flying sites will go over time.
Yeah.
And
the key thing is all those Mavics and Phantoms and all the other craft that people use not to film grassy fields will effectively be relegated as being useless once the NPRM comes in, because you will only be able to fly them over these grassy fields.
Yeah. The US has taken this approach of, we want everyone to comply, and for those who don't comply, we're going to limit where you can fly so we know where you are. And that's the simplest way to put the terms across. Whereas in Europe, they're going, we'd like everyone to comply. If you're going to buy a new aircraft, which you want to fly in these nice new areas, it's going to need to be compliant. But if you're not, carry on what you're doing today. And that's not to say Europe won't change in a couple of years, but nowhere in the European regulations is there a fixed fly sites. They simply say, if you want to fly with a non-compliant aircraft, it basically is non-congested, which you can't fly today. The only way you can fly a congested today is as a commercial operator. Whereas the new permissions will actually allow you to fly in a congested area down to as close as 5 meters in some cases to uninvolve people under the new aircraft schemes. So you get more, and okay, there are elements in the Europe no one likes, which is still the requirement for it to transmit the pilot's location, and that is a big thing that people have an issue with, including myself. But the problem with the US is overnight or in 2 years, they will pretty much end model aviation, because you will be required to either fit remote. Well, no, you can't fit remote ID.
You can't fit,
because the way it's set up is it can only be on an aircraft that's certified by the the FAA at the point of manufacture, or you can fly at these limited sites. So gliders, planes, choppers, doesn't matter what it is, affects everyone over 250 grams.
It's grim.
It's grim.
And
Yeah.
DJI's received an awful lot of flack. So I'll have a tiny rant, and Ian will put me up. It received a lot of flack because they've shown a video of their sort of conspicuity solution, which is Wi-Fi based, and it does show the pilot's location and where the thing is, and it's in the open, in the clear. So if that goes through, anyone could have. There'll be loads of other apps that will suddenly jump up. Be the drone spotter app, drone killer app, drone whatever app that come up all over the place, and people have had a big pop at DJI, and it's not their fault because that was the standard that was proposed, and they've showed it to us. So everybody should have got quite angry about that, but they haven't. They've just got angry at DJI and not realised that actually that was the flipping proposed standard. Anyway.
And it is, and you know, they did it at the right time. They put it out there to cause the most stir. Unfortunately, they didn't. I think probably didn't put it across very well, because they went, "This is our solution. This is what we're suggesting." They should have sort of more done it as, "This is what the government solution will mean, and this is what it will do." And I think they took a bit of flack, but they corrected that quite quickly as well. It's interesting because bits of this have really caused a stir, and it's the network ID element. You know, the requirements of this are that for you to be able to fly, you will have to have a network ID, which means the aircraft must at all times connect to the internet USS provider.
Are you sure about that? Because DJI remote ID has two mechanisms: remote ID and network ID. Network is for business and long-range connectivity.
No, it's everybody.
No. Everybody. If you look under the
every single different model as well. Sorry, Ian, I'm ranting. Every single different model. So you're an old codger like me, and you've got 100 model airplanes in your shed. Every single one of those.
Everyone. It will pretty much end Model RC in the US overnight. And
you know what? I said in the video when I came back after that break, I lost my love for drones. I just wasn't interested it took me 5 months to rediscover how much I enjoyed flying. A big chunk of that reason was the raised regulation and this worry constantly about, you know, when am I flying? Is anybody watching and judging? You know, should I be flying there? Isn't it sad that people like us in the community, you know, are being put off this lovely hobby? And I remember flying my first RC plane when I was 12 with my dad. You know, trainer. I miss those old days when it was just simple.
Yeah, it's the US proposals are insane. You know, the document is massive. I think I've read it about 47 times at least now, and it is shocking. I've done about 4 videos on it. Bruce has done about 170. It is shocking. And what's sad is, and someone mentioned it in the comments. Where is it? Who mentioned it? Rabat. Oh, Rybat. You know what? Yeah, it's the likes of the AMA and Flight Test and others. They've stood there and said, "Oh, this is bad. We don't like this," but they've done it in a sort of backdoor way.
A whispery voice.
Because this will drive everyone to them. The AMA and everyone else must be loving it, because what this will do is force everyone to their flight sites. If you don't have a compliant craft, the only place you can fly is as a member of one of their sites. And they've also doing, "Oh, this is terrible. This is horrible." Okay, it's fine. Just push it through. It'll be okay.
You know what? In 1992, when I used to fly my first RC aircraft, it was at a little airfield called Ilton Airfield in the south of England.
Near Ilminster.
Yeah, exactly. By the Ilminster.
That's where I'm from.
Ooh, something.
Well, they've got into native language now.
Proper proper now, isn't he?
The airfield gave us permission to fly. They were more than happy for us to fly down there. I think Brian, do you remember Brian? What was his name? Brian Taylor, the model maker, who used to fly his aircraft down there as well. and he'd smash them up some days and go home in a sulk. But anyway, we flew our aircraft there. It was an active helicopter training site as well, that airfield. And we would just avoid the helicopters with our planes, our glow fuel planes. There was no issue. It was just so easy and innocent back then.
It was massively active. You have to pick that up. It's the Navy's helicopter training base. So there's probably 5 or 6 aircraft in the circuit continuously doing helipad landings, doing auto rotations. And we used to ride our motorbike up and down the runway when we were doing that as well. But anyway, it's fairly relaxed.
It's interesting. You see James, he's clearly drunk again in the comments. He's clearly been on the whiskey already. But, you know, he's quite proud of the UK regulations. I wouldn't go that far, James. When they were introduced, we were all up in arms with pitchforks. And now we're sitting here going, actually, it's not too bad. I'll take that. You know,
well,
you know,
the people who want to break and breach regulation will continue to, and they will flash their DJI drones with firmware that's never heard of remote ID, and they won't fit anything to their regular electric planes and helicopters. They'll just keep flying. It's only
just because someone
is so minimal. It's the people like us responded to it, but the people who continue to breach common sense flight don't care.
You know, look, drones have Darwin's law built in. Someone who behaves like an idiot, it generally solves itself. You know, remote aircraft have Darwin's law built into the electronics. You know, do something wrong and it solves the problem for you. And, you know, even when you see the people who are flying over houses in the middle of streets, it doesn't mean it's dangerous. Okay, we can all agree that's not the law. But someone could be flying through the middle of a housing estate in the UK at 50 meters, and you watch the video and go, oh, yeah, that's terrible. But did anything go wrong? Did it hurt anyone?
It's like flying over a reservoir in Australia, isn't it? Miles away from the
yes.
Yeah.
Well, this is where I do actually disagree a little bit. Yes, you can overfly a property, and yes, it can be perfectly fine. But the reality is that drones go wrong as well, not just the operator. For example, the Mavic Mini uses lithium-ion cells. It's not very capable in strong wind, and there have been multiple instances in the last few months of Mavic Minis encountering wind of just a gentle breeze, but not having enough power to actually return back to the owner, and it just drops.
Yeah.
So yes, you can overfly a house, but if that dropped on my 3-year-old child who's just getting the house and getting ready to go to school, I would kill the operator.
By the same token, though, manned aircraft can drop, and when they drop, their consequences are a lot more severe. But they can fly over your house without any problems.
They can, but manned aircraft are also incredibly highly maintained and
doesn't stop them dropping.
No, I've sent you the link, James. You've got your teammate here, James. You've got your teammate.
Remember, risk is a product of probability and consequence. And although the risk of a Mavic Air falling from the or Mavic Mini falling from the sky is higher, the consequences are immeasurably lower than when a manned aircraft falls from the sky. So I think risk to risk, I think the drone is a lower risk than the manned aircraft.
We also have to remember who's controlling that manned aircraft. I would definitely rather have a qualified pilot behind the controls of a
The problem is who controls that aircraft? Some programmer in a dark room with pizza and Coke stains on his t-shirt. They're the people controlling airliners these days. I wouldn't trust them as far as I'd pick them.
I'm far happier with my half-leathered pilot than I am the drone operator. It's fine. Now, my point is, though, you know, we all sit here and see these videos that, you know, oh, this is terrible. But the reality is, if we look at the amount of incidents, we look at the amount of accidents, this amount of regulation is completely disproportionate to the actual evidence-based facts around how dangerous model aircraft are dangerous. They've killed loads of people. Let's not pretend they haven't. You know, they have killed. Model aircraft have killed people.
I'll never forget that video being decapitated by his helicopter.
You've seen the graves at our airfield. You've seen the graves at our airfield. But actually, honestly, in the entire history of model aviation, the number of people that have actually been killed by model aircraft can be counted on the fingers of one hand. There have been deaths, but they are very small. And when you consider how many flights there have been and how long this has been going on, it is still by far and away the safest branch of aviation.
I remember an air club I was in years ago in Taunton.
Not Dunkerswell.
You remember that one? No, in Taunton itself. And there was this guy, lovely old chap, old timer, could barely get in and out of his car. Every time that guy took off, we all
got in your cars. Yeah.
You know,
So
and it's,
there weren't any deaths, I agree, but it was bloody close some days.
yeah, you know,
Mike
and that's,
Taunton had that very famous vet who got continuously banned for doing dodgy flying stuff, didn't he? He flew under the bridges in London. He flew to France, and what else did he do? He did loads of stuff in a manned aircraft.
Yeah.
you know, in the UK, we're gonna get the regulation, aren't we? You know, the UK's coming. It's coming. It's not terrible. It's fine. I still do not like the element of these aircraft transmitting the pilot's location to anyone with a phone. I still have grave concerns about that. You know, and I still think that could end, you know, I'm a PFCO, that could end single ops missions, period, because that now has to be wound into my risk assessment. And whereas before, if I was in the middle of a field, in the middle of, you know, around the corner from somewhere, no one knew I was there. Oh, here he is. He looks drunk already. Look,
he's here to argue. Yeah.
You can tell I've been busy. I'm like, I look like I've been homeless, dragged off the streets homeless. But yeah.
And where's the change? Where's the change there then, James?
The situation normal.
Says Gary with his Santa Claus beard.
Yeah.
At least I grow one. Yeah, you talk yourself.
The location of the operator is terrifying. Let's say this could be the start of an organised crime where people know that people regularly fly in a certain area. Next thing you know, you see Inspire 2 up there, and you think, right, let's go grab the owner and steal his aircraft.
Yeah, and from a commercial operator, you know, if I'm in the middle of a field and I'm doing a flight on my own, I can risk assess, I can control the area. I've put my, you know, I've controlled it. Now, before I had to look at the risk of someone knowing where I was and randomly coming in was fairly low. Now I've got to take into account that anyone within a few hundred meters with a phone has the potential to know where I'm standing and now come and see me, and that changes things. And I don't know, what's your thoughts on that, James? Do you think I think it could change single ops?
Watch out for doctors.
So I don't know. In general, I think the remote ID thing, you know, why should members of the public be able to get access to that kind of information? Like, the whole point of that is for enforcement, surely. So why not just encrypt it and then have encryption, you know, de-encryption on the police's computers so that they can actually see the information, but, you know, Joe Bloggs, a member of the public, can't. That would seem like the obvious solution to this. You know, that's just my take on it.
None of them have mandated it, have they? No, you know, the ASTM standard is fully open. It's all to be received. You know, I think he would even agree if it just transmitted the license plate. If it just transmitted the license plate, not my serial number of the aircraft, because that poses other issues, but the license plate that I put in, you know, my register ID or whatever it is, if it makes that public, I'm okay with that, but just not the other data.
Well, like you've now got, like, you know, private key encryption has been around for donkey's years, and you know, it's a very, very much a long-standing piece of technology that's used to basically hide people's details and also to ensure that you're speaking to the right people. So, you know, in terms of identity management, which is what remote ID is meant to be doing, well, you know, encryption is basically the tool that you use with technology to identify who someone is, because if you go and encrypt something one end, the only way that information is from that person is if you decrypt at the other end using their public key, then you know that it's them. So there's no way that you can spoof someone else's details that way. So encryption does two things. It gives you privacy, but it also gives you assurance that the person that you're seeing is actually the person you're seeing.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see in it how this all ends up. But here and now, for, you know, July, and we'll have to see what happens. That's all we can do.
I'm curious about something. How about using finally get a line in there.
Yeah. Well, we've been waiting.
Talk too much, guys. Anyway, I was thinking, how about using some of these programs that you know, spoof the GPS, make it think it's somewhere else. You can just put yourself like 10 miles away from your actual location.
And that'll end up happening. Yeah, that's going to be a realistic probability.
It's funny. I've been doing some safety cases recently, and one of the risks that I've been looking at in a lot of the safety cases for BV loss safety case, which I'm going through at the moment, has been actually GPS spoofing, and there's not really a lot you can do about it, apart from having a GPS device on the ground sort of next to you, and if that starts moving when it clearly isn't, then you know that you're being spoofed. But GPS spoofing is a really big thing in academia, and you know, people have tried to look for ways to solve that by using sort of downward-looking cameras, and actually almost doing like a slam type exercise where you've got downward looking cameras and you're trying to look at the ground beneath you and say, okay, where am I on the map? But it's incredibly difficult. It's really hard, and you've got about 30 seconds using sort of INS technology, inertial technology, before basically for you to actually spot GPS spoofing. So it is quite difficult.
You have to be bloody careful with a DJI drone as well to make sure you set your return to home location correctly. Otherwise, you hit that button, it will fly over to France where you've spoofed your GPS location.
The interesting thing, though, you're talking about BV loss. Have you seen that video of FPV in the 1980s that's been on YouTube recently? With that? Yeah. So these people were flying BV loss back in the 1980s, and many of us, hello Nicola, have been flying BV loss since then. But it's so dangerous, we can't allow it. Oh, terrible, going to have all these new rules and things. But seriously, nobody is actually looking at the historical data and saying, well, actually, these amateur people have proven BV loss can be done extremely safely over protracted periods of time without any risk to person, property, or wildlife. So why are we getting so upset about this? And if they've done it so safely for so long, why are we going to try and regulate them and treat them like commercial operators and have all this requirement when they know what they're doing? Let's just focus with the Boeings of the world who don't have a clue what they're doing. Let's focus on the real problem that people are going to fly these high risk craft in urban environments. That's where we should be focused. Forget about the hobby.
Did we see, just before I forget, because you know I forget things, did we see that one with all the with all the EDFs caught fire, burnt out? The what's it called? The Val, whatever it is, that urban air mobility thing, with 1 million miles range at 5,000 knots at 39,000 feet. Yeah, the first one, Lilium drone. Yeah, it burnt out. Anyway, carry on. What I remember.
Finished.
No, I think you're right with BV loss. You know, current use of BV loss is, or I would say illegal use of BV loss at the moment, is far and few between. I think the problem comes though when you start looking at some of the numbers which are being predicted by the likes of Boeing. I think it's Boeing who released a report, and they looked at what the sky of Paris was going to look like by 2035, and they're predicting about 17,000 drones and about 200 commercial airliners. So actually, drones is going to be swamping. You know, delivery drones are going to be swamping every other kind of air transportation. And so when you start looking at BV loss on that kind of scale, well, two things. You need some way of dealing with that. You know,
vertical separation. It's all that's required. Vertical separation works when GPS barometers keep working. When the GPS fails, you can't spoof a barometric reading. It's the ultimately safe way to keep the airspace safe is vertical separation.
Yeah, but they also keep assuming that actually delivery drones are going to be a thing.
Yeah, I don't think that. They won't be in cities.
I don't think they're going to be.
I'll eat a hat. They will be in the countryside. They will be out delivering stuff where there aren't roads and infrastructure.
Killing machines flying over your head. Come on.
But doesn't that sound like something that might have been said in 1920? They would have said by 1940 the skies of Paris are going to look like this, and there'd be loads of pictures of little blimps and balloons and biplanes.
You know what? This is actually, we've solved climate change. We've solved global warming because the skies will be occluded by all these drones. The sun will not be able to get through. And if you go up further, there is planned to be 40,000 Starlink satellites orbiting the Earth within the next decade. 40,000 satellites. We've got this Dyson sphere built around the Earth. We're going to freeze to death.
Hang on, Greta's just
got to go.
Speech for you, Bruce. It starts, how dare you?
Well, after a global warming comes an ice age, so, you know.
True.
I've seen the movie.
Sorry.
Look, Ash has got to go.
Yeah.
We can't hold him. He's got to go. Ash, thank you very much.
It's 11
Thanks for all the
o'clock
work.
here in
As much
Sweden.
as we've given you a dig about it, but well done on all the work you do with these crowdfunded things. You are the only channel that unpacks it properly and says
my
it like it
pleasure.
is. So well done,
Well,
you.
I do it for the backers, not for me, because trust me, it takes a long time to research this stuff. But hopefully, the
Well, we'll
backers
watch
get
it. We'll watch a court case with interest.
Show us the check from DJI. Show us the check from DJI.
Remember to look out for that interview on Geeks Varna.
Exactly. Hopefully, you'll put the link in here.
Put a link in the chat.
But we'll look for it later.
Ash,
anyway.
send me a message. We can have a chat about trolls.
Oh bloody hell! Yeah, you might want to see my latest video on that.
But he's also trolls near Taunton, but that's another thing altogether as well.
You'll
Right,
laugh at
Ash,
some of
thanks
my
very
recent
much.
trolls. Thanks, guys.
Look
Bye-bye.
after yourself. Cheers, Dave. Bye.
So Gary, I quite like this bet that you're talking about. There's not going to be any that you're going to eat your shorts.
Yeah, I'll eat a hat. No, I won't eat my shorts. That'd be bad. I'll eat a hat.
I think you should do a Gary Lineker. You should do a Gary Lineker, and you should have to do the show in your boxer shorts.
Well, we don't see them.
He already is. You can't see what happens.
You never know. He might be.
What boxer shorts? Yes. Yeah, what boxer shorts?
Just make sure that the camera doesn't point accidentally down.
No, exactly. But all right. Well, what's the premise where what world do you live in? Do you think that there will be delivery drones in city centres to the number of many thousands?
I think you'll see routine BV loss in the UK within 3 years. Looking at the roadmap of regulation at the moment, 3 years, and we'll see routine BV loss.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about legions of delivery drones. BV loss happens every day, all day. I guarantee there's not a commercial operator in the UK that's a member of ARPAS that doesn't fly BV loss now to make money. I guarantee it.
I wouldn't like to comment.
You couldn't like to comment on that, could you?
No. I think with regards to deliveries to sort of very highly urbanized properties, then I think you're quite right. But there are a lot of hub to hub type deliveries that I think you'll see, and high value items. So I think medical deliveries is an absolutely smashing use case. You know, blood samples, drugs, things like this, which need to be delivered quickly and precisely to between different locations. That will save lives, and that will do our industry like a lot of good. I've been looking at seeing some projects which are looking at exactly this. In 2 years' time, electronic conspicuity is going to be mandated. The CA have stated that. They've stated it several times. Share the Air and several other locations, they have said that this is going to happen. They haven't told us quite how it's going to happen yet, but you know, they've set a precedent now. And then you've got the Future Flight Challenge, which stage 3 kicks off in 2 years as well, which is the demonstration phase, which nicely aligns with that. So I think if you put those two things together, BV loss is going to be a reality in the next sort of 3 years.
But it is. Come on, let's be real. It is, and here BV loss means to 100 kilometers generally. Most people fly, so it's happening routinely, day to day around the world, and it'll just be a little bit more regulated. I think you're lucky in the UK in that you have probably the most sensible attitude towards electronic conspicuity of anywhere, and also the best group of people working on it. Maybe I'm shilling for them now. Maybe I'm an NDA.
Richard sending you that check.
Yeah, exactly. But no, it is. There's much more, and I said it last time. It's because they're a nation of train spotters, and there's more people interested in that sort of a thing. So it's going very well there. So I do see a bright future for all that sort of thing in the UK that won't be disruptive to the model aircraft community. Probably be supportive of it, I should imagine. But yeah, sorry, it didn't help, did it? That didn't take us anywhere, did it? But no,
yeah, I'm looking forward to watching you eat your hat, Gary, for sure.
Well, all right. Well, we need to set some ground rules for the hat eating competition then. So, because I think these 10,000 drones are going there because they are delivering to people's gardens and to the front of their houses, and that's not going to happen. That's the point. That's the point I was thinking of hat eating. I won't eat hats for BV loss and medical deliveries and sensible point-to-point delivery points, because I do think I agree with you, that'll happen.
I agree with James that they're going to be delivering drugs, prisons, things like that, as he was saying.
Drugs in prisons, they do that now. Happening right now.
Yeah. I think, as you say, DPD are not going to be delivering my new printer via a drone. I do not expect that to be happening in 10 years' time. It's interesting. Okay, I've paid €8 to get something shipped from, where is it coming from? Let me just check. Let me tell you. And how is a drone ever going to be cheaper than $8? Let's just have a look. Is it $8 or €8? Where is it? Shipped. I paid carrier. Oh, sorry, £11.42 for this thing to be shipped to me from the Czech Republic. So is a drone ever going to be able to do that cheaper?
But you live in the wilds of Wales.
And I live in the wilds of Wales. So I'm the perfect candidate for having a remote delivery type of solution.
Wouldn't it be the other way around, because you're miles away from the hubs, whereas in London or the big
money
cities,
to send people in vans down to me when a drone could fly large distances in short periods, couldn't it?
That pizza will be very cold by the time it gets to you, mate.
But is it ever going to be cheaper than a man in a van can bring me a box from the Czech Republic for 11, just under 12 quid?
Yeah, and then that van can then go with another parcel to the next house.
Yes,
and then the next house. Yeah.
But what you have to remember is you've got a van which weighs 1.5 tons or whatever, generally, which is using probably about 25 to 50% of its capacity. All of that fuel that's needed. Electricity is actually quite cheap. And if you've got these things flying around autonomous, like the maths only stacks up when you can remove the human out of the loop. If you've got a human in the loop, maths doesn't stack up, and this is why you need autonomy. You need
an
autonomous electric van. My autonomous electric van.
It can carry a lot more than a single package, and it costs about the same as the drone, if not cheaper, actually.
It is. It's. Let's look at the value. A man for a day. Let's be reasonable. He's going to win £150 for a day, and if a courier's in 150 quid, he's probably doing well. But you can say a man for a day. Look, what can we say the cost of a vehicle for a day is?
I knew he would know the cost of a man for a day. But anyway, moving on. Yeah.
Yes, I rent myself out regularly. Yeah. Let's just say fuel in a van, £50 for the day. Running costs, that's £200. Average drop diver, 120 drops a day. So it's costing what, £2? It's nothing. It's nothing compared to.
And drones can hover forever on a single charge.
Yeah.
So I've got to admit with you, I was completely of the same opinion. I sat down and did some maths, which is always a bad decision to do. But I basically worked out if you have one person supervising 20 drones, you could get the price down to about £2.50 a delivery on average.
But how far?
Has anybody said they're going to let that happen yet?
Probably about 5k. So you're looking last mile kind of type thing. But that last mile is what takes the time. If you've got these depots which are spread around and you can do 5k from those depots, even if it's only delivering it to a local post office, a lot of people would go for that. There's a lot of pickup points nowadays where you can, where they could put a landing pad on top of their roof. I think that's where you'll see things start happening is landing pads on top of pickup point roofs, and they'll have some kind of way of being able to order off Amazon or something like this within a 5-kilometer range, and then pick up your item within 30 minutes. I think that's achievable. And
as long as
you know,
it's not too,
okay.
the weather's not too bad, as long as it's not raining or blowing a gale or anything else, and as long as, but what did you take into account that the depreciation or the opportunity cost of the capital tied up in these drones, their lifetime, the maintenance costs, all the things that, I mean, a van, you buy a van, it goes for 200,000 miles, and that's it, a bit of oil, bit of, you know, whatever. Your drone isn't going to last that equivalent number of flights, and your batteries alone, how many charge cycles do you get out of a battery? Batteries aren't cheap. You've got to have someone doing all the maintenance. It's going to be a lot more than for your little van. There are so many factors. I think you're taking a pretty superficial look at it. And yes, the drop-off point thing is great, but if I want to deliver something delivered, I want it delivered. I don't want to have to go and pick it up. That's not delivered. That's just moving the point where I pick it up from. So it's not a delivery in that case. The future of drone delivery is very, very focused. It's business to business. It's not business to consumer, because consumers don't want to pay that price. And the number of consumers is huge. If you do business to business, you've got that leverage, that fan out. One business to business delivery may result in a lot more business to consumer deliveries, and consumers take them out of the loop because they're spread too far apart.
Well, Gary, I've got some bad news for you.
Oh, again. Okay.
Can I share my screen?
Yeah. Oh no, I've got to eat a hat. Where's my hat? Give it a go.
Wait there. Give me 10 seconds because it's a stupid advert.
Here we are.
It
From
should
the mirror.
hopefully start in a second. So there we go. We've got an advert at the moment, but so this, I don't know if you saw
that?
this.
We don't have those over here. What's that thing? Tell me what that is.
Give it a second. Here we go. Oh, what the hell's going on here? Okay, so that's a game. That's definitely not what I clicked on. So I don't know.
Yeah. That's why we tell the wife. Yeah. I don't know where the link came from.
Just Eat launches drone deliveries that will fly your takeaway to you within 3 minutes.
Is this the Irish one?
Yes. So they're starting drone deliveries in next month.
And what did the Irish CAA say?
Well, I don't know, but they say they're doing it.
They said, the Irish CAA said, they've never even spoken to us.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that actually true?
Yes, it's actually true. Yeah. They said
That's
who?
hilarious, because I got to admit when I saw it, I just wanted to see watch you eat your hat, to be honest. When I saw it, it looked a little bit like vapor to me. But the thing which is annoying is I think that this will happen, but I think it will happen. You know, you're not going to see Domino's delivering your pizza anytime soon. I don't believe that. I think there will be use cases for it. I think drone deliveries will happen. And I think there will be some business to consumer stuff going on. There will be more business to business. Like I agree with Bruce on that. But there will be some sort of high value ticket items that will be sort of business to consumer. But that's, you know, if you look at the trend of anything, like when the Nokia 3310 first came out, would you think you'd now have in your hand a device that can basically do word processing, connect you to the internet, watch videos, and all the rest of it? You know, technology moves quite quickly, and so I don't think it's beyond anyone's far-fetched imagination that these things will evolve over time, and we will start seeing the price coming down and down and down until the point where, you know, Amazon deliveries does become a thing.
Well, there's some really capable airframes out there already, and I've seen them. I've watched them fly. They're already here. They're here. They exist. They can fly 70 kilometers with 5 kilos, and some great platforms out there. That Winter thing in Tanzania is going at 80 kilometer back and forth daily run to an island, 80 each way, so 160 kilometer round trip. So it's there.
I'm trying to share my screen. Can you see anything, Gary?
Sorry, mate.
Is there a screen share up there from me?
Sorry. Here we are. There we are. Oh, did you see their new thing? See their new thing based on impossibility? It'll never fly.
They're hiring. Look, they're hiring. You can join the team.
But they're
Philip just shared on Twitter. There's one Philip has just shared. Is it Manor?
Did I just drop Bruce out of it? No, Manor's the Irish one.
Yeah, Manor's the Irish one. Okay.
How do I get rid of that? There we are. Did I get rid of Bruce? I got rid of Bruce.
I got rid of it for you, Gary.
No, I didn't. I got rid of. I knew.
Oh,
sorry
what
about
did you bring
that,
him back for?
Yeah, I know. That all went horribly wrong. It's not showing the screen.
It's HoboCam. It's on again. Look.
Front and
Right, I'll get my shaver out for you if you like.
Yeah. No,
you got to be careful, James. He hasn't clicked the underage box, and if you shave, you'll look 15 again. That's the problem. So.
Oh, no.
I wish. I've got that sort of age now where when I smile, I get the crow's feet. So I try and keep as straight a face as possible. And then I look younger.
James, you got Soddle to worry about. Shut up.
Yeah. Boo Boo, I think Boo Boo's right. It'll be a drone van. They're already in Milton Keynes, aren't they? What are those things called? Starship or whatever.
There'll be a man pitch up outside your house, and the drone will take off from the roof, fly over the roof of your house, land in your garden, deliver the parcel, land on top of the van, and drive off again. And he'll do that.
That's workhorse. It's already there. It's already that's already a proposal.
The van will pull up. The van will pull up outside your house. The van will pull up. And the man will get out and he will throw a drone across the fence at your door.
With the parcel attached.
Yeah. But that workhorse thing in America, which does exactly that with, is it UPS with the brown vans? Yeah. Whichever one the ones is with the brown vans, is then the van that keeps moving and the thing comes to the van, wherever it is, and then it pops into the van and the man puts the next box in it while the van keeps going. There's workhorse and UPS. I think it is.
CityLink used to deliver via here already. They used to just pitch up, grab it, throw it over the fence, and you could argue that was drone. It was drone delivery at that point. It was just self.
We've all seen those Ring doorbell footage of the guys that rush up and steal your Amazon package. You're telling me they're not going to throw rocks at a drone? Speaking of which, I laid a complaint with the CIA this week.
You did, didn't you? That's right.
I did. Yes.
No good will come of it.
Nothing. Okay. Yeah, no good will come of it. So, have you heard anything from your CAA?
I've heard nothing back yet, but big wheels turn incredibly slowly, so I'm sure they have to do something. I filed an ARC, which means they actually have to do something. It's an official complaint.
And Drone Racer saying self-driving van with robot postman. That is already out there as well, and I think that was Ford. Was it Ford doing that?
Yeah, can you imagine Atlas delivering your parcel? So Atlas would jump out the back of a van, run to your front door, kick it in, deliver the parcel, and then run out and take the door with it and put it back on. Boston
Interesting
Dynamics.
That Lee's mentioning, it's a cool thing mentioning less than 40k people on the comments, because before we started, we looked at the comments and we all came up with a different number.
And that's interesting.
That was interesting that we all came up with a different number. Something.
How long do we think they're going to take to reply to this?
It'll be over a year.
You reckon, Bruce?
Yeah.
Here's my prediction. I almost made a video about this, but I thought I'd put this prediction into this one. Here's my prediction. There will be an announce within the next month that the first 2 CBOs have been created, and they will be the Flight Test Community Association and the AMA. And they'll go, thank you very much. And that's my.
If you watch the videos, the one you did, Bruce, the one about the thing, the one the other day, I watched the one with the committee. This is a formality from their point of view. From their opinion, this is absolutely necessary and must happen. I reckon by July. My bets are by July, something will be in place. They won't want to wait long because there's a 2-year period, and they won't want to wait. They
can push them through if they have to, and they do push them through. But I bet you the first announce will be a joyous. We've got 2 CBOs, and that will shut people down because they haven't got angry enough about it. That will shut people down, and then the next thing will be wallop, and this is what it looks like.
You got to remember though that they have to be very careful to be seen to be doing everything right, because they've already lost one court battle with John Taylor. If they don't do everything right, they could be challenged in court. And if they rolled up 2 months later and said, we've looked at all the submissions and we've responded to them all, if they haven't, then this will just be a giant problem for them, because someone will sue the snot out of them and it'll halt the whole thing for however long the court case takes.
Unless it's national security.
No, yeah, it's all about safety. Safety trumps everything. Did you have to respond? I can't remember to each individual one.
I don't know if they have to respond to the issues raised. I don't think it's each individual submission. But in response to Ian, I would rather die on my feet than live on my knees.
Ian knows a girl like that. But anyway, moving on very swiftly.
Married a girl like that.
Oh,
Guys, I'm gonna have to get going.
Oh, mate, we didn't
Oh,
get
you've
to talk
offended
about your
Nicola.
video.
Okay,
I'm
let's
sorry, Nicola.
get the video.
Well, you
Tell us
talk
about your
crap
video.
too much.
But you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Yeah.
Tell us about your video. You've actually got a video out which you haven't done for ages.
No, I have 3 videos in about a month or a month and a week, but that was after a 2-month or something pause because they were just so boring to make. No other reason. They were just so boring, and I had to do them. Otherwise, if I'd let them sit, I'd never finish them. So I had to do them, but they sort of killed my desire to do anything else, and I didn't. So yeah, 2-3 months of literally nothing. But now, finally, I'm getting back to those planes. So should do some flying soon. Well, now not so new planes and not so new autopilots, but they'd be new to me because I just now I'm starting to open the boxes.
So you'll be able to go up and have another look for your aircraft in the mountains. Then it must be coming up to its 2-year anniversary now. Isn't it? So we have some sort of party or something.
It's only a year.
Is it only a year?
Yeah.
You sure?
Yeah,
No, it's not.
Yeah. Around this time last year is when it happened.
Oh, we should be having a celebration for that. And the trouble is, the FAA has seen all your videos, and that's exactly why. So we're going to blame you for America now, or I'm going to blame you for America now. They've watched all your videos.
Well, they're living in the wrong country anyway, so.
Yeah, there we are. There we are.
Don't wake up, Ian.
No, I'm just checking something. I'm listening. I am listening. We need to find this plane, Nicola. I need an image of it. We need something. Just an overflight of a. You need to do like an MH370 sketch on the areas you've searched and the projected area we think it went down in and things like that.
Why? I don't understand. Why is it so important to find it? It's just a plane, just a piece of non-biodegradable foam.
It's not an inanimate object. How many hours did you put into that vehicle? Well, the fact it crashed probably says not a lot, but
If only there was a way to remotely identify and locate a drone.
Oh,
yes, because the CAA, if you're in England, the CAA would have their recover. Get your drone back when you lose it because it'll have a number on it.
Actually, I had put more time into taking the photos, doing the videos, etc., than the actual building and gluing and putting together. So it's not that big of a deal. I mean. It sort of did its job. I would have liked to have had it for a few more flights.
If I was going to market this remote ID thing in the States, that's what you would do. You'd basically say that everyone has to subscribe to a sort of find your drone app, which basically means that if you lose your drone, that you'll always be able to find it because
they sell GPS trackers for that do not limit you in any way or keep track of your report, your position or whatever to anybody that's interested.
We want you to find it. We want to see it fly again. We want to see what's left of it, what the rank say.
That's optimistic. That's just more optimistic than
that'd be like Trigger's broom.
Yeah,
we do these. We do these things not because they're easy, but because they're hard.
They're hard. Yeah, exactly.
Well, here's one option. Then I buy a new one, put it together, go to the mountain, drop it somewhere, then fly over it. Then fly over it, go up again, recover it.
Do an
unboxing.
How big is the area you think it went down in? How large is this area?
Brush it off and fly it, and you'd be happy.
How large is the area you think it went down in?
I don't know.
Bearing in mind, you know,
He was,
bearing in mind,
again,
you know,
that girl. Yeah.
Assuming
Ian, that question is basically how illegal are you flying right now?
He was 30 kilometers away.
Assuming everything went down as I think it did, which is, you know, trying to estimate what the autopilot did after the failsafe and where it actually hit the mountain. Depending on whether whatever I can say with, you know, within 200-300 square meters where it is or was, but then again, there was a lot of snow, a lot of wind. It could have blown it away, and that increases the area a little bit, and then a lot of that area is during the warmer months is like a tourist destination, like tourist paths or something. So somebody could have seen it, found it.
Well, I was going to add a little bit to that final thing. I may or may not have had a little bit of a touch of a flyaway, funnily enough, exactly in the Cranfield experimental corridor, because I was living under there at the time. And I spent ages looking for this wing, ages and ages and ages. And then even a friend of mine comes with his helicopter, come and had a look, ages, because they had a very expensive autopilot in it. And ages and ages and ages. And then I come back down here because when I was doing flying in the summer in the UK, and then back down here for the summer down here for 6 months. And whilst I was here, somebody called the office where I was working and said, God, you know, I was out in my garden and this thing thudded into the trees out the back. So I put it in the garage for safekeeping. And he rang about 6 months later. So I've been searching and searching and searching. And within moments of this thing hitting the deck, roughly exactly where I thought it was, somebody put it in the garage. Yeah. So, anyway.
What autopilot was on it, Nicola?
Maybe we need like a SUAS News like mountain challenge competition where we basically have to fly drones BVLOS and search for Nicola's drone, lost drone.
From here, from Africa.
Okay, there's just one problem with that. There are probably 3 or 4 people in this country that have the guts or the gear to make it there and actually have a viable control signal, a viable video signal, and a decent recording camera to review all of that later on.
I want to see that. I want to see that tag on your videos. I've got the guts and the gear.
What autopilot?
Tagline, I've got the guts and the gear.
What autopilot?
I remember it. Okay, give me a second to check my blog.
What software then?
If I remember, no, it was Audioplane, and it was on. If I remember it correctly, it was on Omnibus F4 Pro. Yeah, that's the one.
Shocking.
On an Omnibus F4 Pro, and it was running very well. It's just the return to land programming that failed it.
You should have ticked that box that says Miss Mountain on return to home.
Yeah.
Was it too low? Is that why it? What was the reason it went down?
I was flying. Well, I was flying like a few meters over the top of the mountain, along the top of the mountain. So I'm 12 kilometers away, but I'm 10 meters above the terrain at 12 kilometers away, and the mountain sort of goes south and sort of, you know, turns in on itself. And because it's so huge and you're flying, you know, 10 meters above the terrain, you don't really pay attention to that turn that it's making. And I wasn't really thinking about it. And at some point, it just went, it's going down and it's going further away from me. And at some point, it just went beyond the point, beyond line of sight, like outside, behind the mountain. So when it went into failsafe, it turned around, and Audioplane immediately plots a straight line, like a diagonal line down to the takeoff location. So it would arrive at 100 meters starting from whatever it is right there. But right there already is lower than the height of the mountain. So turning around, it starts going down even more and ends up hitting the hitting the mountain.
I'd never do that. I'd never.
It sounds
ever,
like pilot
ever do
error or
anything like
something.
that.
10
To be fair,
kilometers.
Nicola, it's kind of it's quite responsible flying there because although you were BV loss, you were actually flying within a shielded operation because you were so close to the mountain.
Yes.
There was no aircraft within that zone, so you know it was good that you were thinking about risk and safety. In your flying practice.
That was it. That's what I was thinking.
Exactly.
Yeah, and actually,
I'd never,
funny thing
ever
is,
do a thing like that. Ever.
yeah, funny thing is, just a few days later, I did the exact same flight with another plane, trying to confirm my theory. And I did 3 flights, exactly the same, flying 10 meters above the top of the mountain from 12 kilometers away, because during the first 2, at one point I forgot to start the recording on the HD camera. I did the whole flight, landed, and only then discovered that I'd forgotten to start it. Charge the battery, send it up again. Something else happened. It stopped recording after 15 minutes. So that was a second fail, but I did do the flight, and then I did it a 3rd time within that same day. Oh my God. And this time I did manage to get the recording, and I did manage to get some awesome shots of that low proximity at long range. It was awesome.
It won't hurt to do it again and get yourself the find it again. So I mean, there won't be. Or is the snow returning now?
I have been thinking to try and dedicate a plane to repeating that trajectory, meter by meter, and then just letting it fail safe, turn around and hit the mountain.
Stuff in there and then go and look for that. Ready. Or follow it, and watch where it goes.
Maybe have someone up there on the spot that would actually be observing what's happening, and he would be like 200 meters away from the plane at all times. But theories, plans, we'll see. If I ever come to hate one of these big planes enough, might do that.
That'd be the way to do it.
You'll just have to make conditions are exactly the same, and then you'll be back on. And then if you keep doing this, you'll be able to gradually build up a
nice pile.
So and then it's out the top of the snow.
Yeah.
Well, that'll happen more frequently, won't it? Because the mountain will be that bit higher, so it'll be easier to crash them. But there's a road up there, isn't there? Wasn't there an observatory or radar or something up there?
The white one is the it's the air traffic control radar. The mushroom-looking the mushroom-looking thingy that's on the other side, on the edge facing the city, is some. They claim it's an abandoned military building, but I think there's something active still up there. There are some antennas on top of that, and I don't think they're not being used. I have no idea what for. It hasn't given me any interference on the frequencies I'm using currently. But I think 1.3 gigahertz guys have been complaining.
I'll just see this.
Is anyone going to the World ATM conference next week in Madrid?
No.
Anyone?
No.
Haven't they just
malware? Avoid.
Didn't they just cancel it?
No, I don't think so. It's like one of them chickenpox parties that you go to, and then you share your coronavirus with everyone.
No.
He's done it. He did it.
Oh,
Did you not tell
Gary,
him the
you
rules?
can kiss that monetization goodbye.
That's it. That's that then.
And me
Do you know
too,
they've done that?
so
They're
have a nice
demonetizing
evening,
every
guys.
video that says that.
Take it easy, Nicola.
All right, mate.
And
Look
I
after
will see you
yourself.
next week.
All right. Look after yourself, boy. Take
Bye-bye.
care.
It's a true thing, James. You're not allowed to say that word on YouTube. It results in instant demonetization.
Does it actually?
Yeah, 100% true.
Yeah,
100% true. Honestly, it's crazy. It's mad.
That's all right.
That's a whole. I might have lost about upwards of 20 pence.
No. I think he should send you a check for the $1,725 you'll have lost through the lack of money.
There you go. That's it.
I might test this. I might record something very quickly after this, just talking about drone delays and whack it up and just see if it gets demonetized, just to see if it actually happens.
No, it is. It's in the
happened to mine.
studio thing.
Yeah.
It's in the creator do this videos that they send.
Yeah, and because they do that text to speech conversion for the subtitling, it actually knows what was supposed to know what you're saying. But I had a video demonetized allegedly because what I said was profanity. It was nothing like it.
For sure, hate speech is getting out of control. To be fair, man, you really do need to sort
I
it
love hate speech.
Yeah. It's a bit like what's that West Country comedian? It is a bit like a Jethro concert most of the time. His videos, so yeah. I'm a professional, just like your mother was. That's one of his great lines. What happened was.
What happened was. Maui.
I said to Denzel, yeah.
Well, we'll see now if this gets demonetized, because you've got monetization turned on, haven't you, Gary?
Yes, I have.
So, to be fair, it usually gets demonetized anyway.
It does, yes. Yeah. Generally, it's just in which particular way and at which particular. In fact, that's a bingo we could have, isn't it? Demonetization bingo. So, you can easily have that.
Drugs in prison.
I think the thing that's going to do it though is HoboCam. That's just no.
HoboCam, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, this is our community outreach part of the thing. You know, it's very good of it.
I'm intrigued. You've got a proper branded T-shirt. What's this all about? I've missed this. You've been spending money again, Gary.
Why have I got T-shirts? There was a reason. Oh, Farnborough. Going to Farnborough.
I'm shilling. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm shilling. Yeah. Oh, yes, for my own company. Oh, no, that's right.
Who's DerbyshireDrones.net?
Just down the road from me, Derbyshire Drones in Derbyshire.
.net. Gosh, I don't never even.
I don't have a look at that.
I don't know if they're still in business. They
Bruce and his historic T-shirts
many years ago.
Yeah, but I should hopefully be at Farnborough this year, James. That C word, coronavirus accepted. I mean, who knows if they're not going to cancel that? But I know one of the ICAO meetings has definitely been cancelled in Canada, and I thought that ATM one was going the same way. Yeah.
I've been invited to Beijing in May. So
lovely.
Please go. Please go.
It was all expenses paid for a speaking slot.
Medical expenses.
I get. And I was kind of like, oh, this is brilliant. And then coronavirus happened. I'm like, well, that's not going to happen anymore, is it?
No.
Yeah.
So they even said don't plan anything because it could get cancelled. So I'm like, the first time I get sent like somewhere nice for a conference free of charge, and it's going to get cancelled because of coriander virus.
There you go.
There you go.
Oh yeah, now the Coriander Institute of wherever coriander comes from, we're going to be in trouble with them now. Yeah.
It is interesting. I don't know if you saw today, Autel have put a statement out giving an update on the Evo 2 about 2 hours ago. I shared it earlier, and interestingly, they're back in action, and they're actually saying they expect to be shipping by the end of this month. So it is interesting that they're saying they haven't been affected by it that much. And that would then imply that the others, like DJI, wouldn't have been affected by it as much in the sense of the manufacturing areas. So it's interesting. It might not cause quite the delay I was thinking it might, and others have said as well.
I think it's all overstated. I noticed a report this morning saying the number of reported cases has dropped dramatically on a day-by-day basis. They've got it under control. And it's no worse than a bad bout of influenza. It's like we don't go spastic when there's a new flu virus comes around every winter. It's a bit. I think the media has been instrumental in hyping this, just like they do with drones. They're hyping it to make a buck.
Yeah, it's.
I completely agree. My flatmate went out and bought like a shelf full of tin cans of food, and I'm just like, I actually physically face spam myself. I'm just like, oh my god, it's happening.
Anything nice though?
So,
Anything nice in those cans, or is it just
probably
survival
not.
stuff?
Like, I don't know, beans or something. I've not even looked. I just saw a shelf full of tin cans. I'm just like, okay, the world's gone mad.
It strikes me you should go straight to that shelf and remove all the labels, so he's got can bingo ahead of himself. That's what I do.
Swap them is better.
Or swap them, yes.
You know, in some ways, people always go against China for the communism, but in some ways, it's been very easy for them to turn around and control the population and say, you're not allowed out, you need to stay in. And that's probably what's been the reason they've been able to get on top of this. The UK is going to be a mess. If this does hit, we are going to be, it's going to be like snow. You know, we get 1 mil of snow and the UK turns to absolute chaos. It's going to be like that.
Or 3 feet of rain.
Ian, look at this as an opportunity. If you haven't already bought stocks in Kleenex, then
yeah, you know, and big companies, you know, all of the companies out there are putting out a lot of things. All the companies I'm involved with have all put, you know, mass restrictions on international travel and stuff, and it's going to be interesting. But from a drones point of view, the Evo 2 is back in production. They're saying by the end of March, and they're actually saying all models will be available at the end of March as well. So it's allowed them to catch up in that area. So we're going to see what happens. Skydio 2, it doesn't seem to hit them neither. I don't seem to have seen anything.
Aren't they hand building them all in America?
Yeah, I still think there's still a certain level of supply out of China, though, isn't there? You know, components.
And where do you think we are with the deliveries of those things? Yeah.
It feels slow, but it's constant. I've seen some posts this week, some from good guys I know on RC groups and places like that who've received them. It feels like a drip. They're drip feeding out. I can't figure out if that's because the amount of people have ordered is not so low, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but just smaller compared to what we expected, or is it just the quantities? You know, the initial buzz was huge. Absolutely massive, but it's hard to know, does that translate into actual money in the bank? And only Adam could answer that. It'd be really interesting to hear from him, actually. I want to know about Europe, and something should be said. They've done an FCC update on the Skydio 2, and they've recertified the transmission. What more frequencies, additional band as well, and there's question marks whether this will come to the ones that have shipped already. In the past, other manufacturers have, even though the FCC label hasn't changed physically on their aircraft, they've been allowed to give them the firmware update. DJI have done that with the Inspire in the past when it's been updated. But there's hints that this either could be the European move, or they're hoping to give improved range on existing models for users as well.
I see they've got a warehouse option out as well, and there's a big warehousing. I can't remember, it's something 2020 next week. I've got two press. I've already put one press release out there. One's going to go out, and there's 2 more waiting until next week to go out. So there's going to be 4 different drone manufacturers or drone, not necessarily manufacturers, but people doing warehouse stock inventory control stuff. Show next week. So yeah, that's quite interesting. Yeah,
it seems to be where a lot of people are moving, and I think we could probably, I was originally thinking everything was going to be delayed May, June, July. Maybe we might start seeing some stuff from DJI in the next month or so. If Autel are moving, perhaps DJI will start as well, but no one knows. Everything's rumors, nothing's confirmed, nothing's leaked, no NDAs are signed, no one knows anything at this stage. That I do know. You know, there's nothing confirmed. You know, normally I've seen all of these launches over the years. I've been lucky to have even been access to some of the stuff early in the past, and there are little telltale signs that happen on the lead up to it, and we're not at that stage yet. If we were, I wouldn't be talking about it. It's that simple. You know, we're not, and that's not to say something won't happen tomorrow, because the one thing with DJI is they're predictably unpredictable. They do things differently every single time. But the noises, for me, the waters are not trembling. There's I don't think we're next 30 days plus. But with them, it can be an email tomorrow and suddenly something's happening, you know.
Yeah.
Gary, can I go on a bit of a rant?
Yes. All right. Okay. Hang on. Well,
I want to go on a rant
everyone.
about remote ID and UTM.
Yes.
Have you finished your song now, Bruce?
He's finished his song. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I thought he was mixing some, like doing a mixtape or something. No, sorry, bad joke. So at the moment, people fly in visual line of sight. Have they killed anyone yet?
Not
Have
many.
they hurt anyone yet? Have they crashed into any planes yet?
Not many.
No.
Same with BV loss.
There's no issue there. So why change that? The whole point is, at the moment in the US, you've got these USSs or UTMs or whatever you want to call them. There's a list of about 70 of them now, all around the world. None of them are working with each other. None of them are, they're all like, okay, I'm going to control this country, you're going to control that country, and this isn't going to work. Now, what you've got a situation though is that really what is UTM? UTM is autonomous air traffic control. The whole point of it is to be able to ensure that drones don't crash into each other and to ensure that drones don't crash into aircraft. That really should be the end goal for UTM. So surely the pay point for UTM should be in enabling BV loss. It shouldn't be in allowing people to continue doing what they're already doing and having to pay for it. And so I sort of see what's going on at the moment is it's like, okay, well, we haven't managed to go and crack BV loss yet. So, but we need to start getting paid. And so
someone's going to pay for it. Exactly.
We need to lobby the FAA. The FAA will then grant us a concession to say, oh yeah, well actually we want some like security and like we want to know where people are flying. So that works in our advantage as well. So let's do that. I like the EAS approach. The EAS approach is nice. It's a carrot rather than the stick. It's saying, okay, well, we'd like to know where you are. And, if you do tell us where you are, then we'll give you extra privileges for doing so. That seems like a much more amicable sort of solution to that. But even so, I still think privacy needs to be sort of contended with. And the final thing is actually, I think we were on a Facebook post a couple of weeks ago about the question of, okay, should people be paying to access airspace or should they be paying for a service? And I'm very much, well, like airspace is everyone's to use. Like I'm very much liberal in that sense. Okay, well, it's everyone's sky to use. But if you need a service, then you should pay for the service. And if that service is downloading data from sensors on the ground, which are detecting where manned aircraft are, they're detecting where drones are, they're providing conflict avoidance, detection of all different types of aircraft. That's a service that you're paying for, and that's where you pay. Not, okay, well, give us your data and then pay us to go and give us your valuable data. It's kind of like it's kind of like the complete opposite of what it should be. If I'm giving you my data, you pay me for it, not the other way around. You're the one who's getting the benefit. I'm getting no benefit from this whatsoever. So if I'm giving you my data, you pay me for that data, and that's how I think things should be. It's all about.
No, I've got to red card you, James, because that's just all sensible. It's just sensible. You're bang on right. That's not a rant. That's how it should be. And it pains me to say that to you, but you're bang on right. You can't
beat that hobo logic.
No, you can't beat hobo logic. You can't beat it. No, it's all an utter madness. And I know, or I have been. I don't know. I have been told from a couple of sources that one of the major UTMs pushing it in the US, this is the last roll of their VC funding dice. And if this doesn't go through in the way it wants, they will no longer be in the industry. And it's one of the bigger original ones. I dare not name them.
Does it begin with AI and then
because
end with remap?
Whenever it may or may not. Whenever I mention them, or we mention them a lot, we get big hits on we get big denial of service attacks on the website. So, yep.
Interesting.
Yep. Every time.
Well,
Every
that's quite
time
funny,
Patrick
actually,
goes on a
because
rant.
that's quite funny because I wonder how their centralized servers deal with DDoS attacks themselves. You know, what happens if you're flying your drone around BVLOS and suddenly their servers get hit with a DDoS attack? I wonder how resistant they are to those kinds of cyber attacks. You know,
Well, that's why they want the ability to take over, isn't it, and send the LAN command. They want always another way, backdoor way to send the LAN command to everything, and that's the reaction, I think, is land.
All these
So
UTM companies, from what I've seen, are using 1990s IT infrastructures. Like that's my opinion, and that I think it's right. That they're using 30-year-old technology to power 2020 technology, and it's not. They need to start thinking a little bit further ahead. I think they need to work together. They need to be using more advanced technology. We need to sort of think about this on a completely different level playing field. And I don't know, at the moment, I just think that the whole premise of the data economy within this ecosystem at the moment is like, I give you my data and then I pay you to give me my data. That doesn't seem fair. If it should be, data has value, so pay for that. And I think that is a model that I think most people would get behind, and as well, at the end of the day, it encourages people to collect data then as well, because if you've got people out there with, say, Pilot Aware or ADSB receivers and stuff like that, you've got hundreds of people around the UK who have got these things installed on their rooftops. But if you suddenly tell them, "Oh, I'll pay you £200 a year for this data," well, I wonder how many more people are going to install these things and make the air safe. So actually, like, data is valuable, and I think that it's kind of in the sense that cost should be attributed to value, and it's the same with Heathrow. Like, you saw the recent Heathrow runway 3, and I was kind of like, well, the problem which we have with sort of manned aviation at the moment is that the actual true cost of flight travel isn't actually being accounted in a ticket price. We're not taking into account the environmental cost of flying. And if actually all of these problems of saying, okay, we're not going to do a third runway because of environmental reasons, well, actually, if we just let the market do its thing and we just basically tot up the cost of what air travel really costs, both from a commercial point of view and an environmental point of view, I think we'll see the green technology, the green technology move on and innovate a lot quicker than it is at the moment. But we're not capturing that cost. So, I'm very much a purist when it comes to stuff like that. Attribute cost to value, and then the market works everything out.
A hobo called Greta. That's fantastic. But the thing that amazes me is that we're always told that aviation is all about managing risk, right? But this whole UTM thing, we've got 3 very clear points of failure and no backup when it comes to controlling drones via UTM. It is outrageous. Like with manned aviation, if you've got air traffic control, if the GPS goes down, well, there's fallback systems, there's beacons, and there's this visual line of sight and all that sort of stuff that and radar that can be used. But when a UTM with drones goes down, when the GPS fails, the drones have no idea where they are. They don't know where they are, and they don't show up on radar at all. So you've got all these craft who are wandering around in the dark, and if they're integrated into manned airspace, the manned aviation craft, they don't know where the drones are either. The potential consequences of that failure is enormous, and we've got failure perhaps of the UTM, failure of the GPS system, or failure of the technology on the drones itself. There's 3 points of failure for which the consequences are not even worth considering. Yet they want to rush this out, push it through. There is no fallback. There is no backup system that will take over if any one of those 3 things fails. And I don't see how when they talk about risk and, you can't fly above visual line of sight, it's too dangerous, you can't fly above, can't fly here or there. Why are they saying, well, let's introduce this incredibly risky system with no fallback and no failsafe. Let's introduce this, because why?
Actually, Bruce, if you take into account the US regulations, what they say is if your UTM fails and you have a connection to it, you will not be allowed to fly. Yet if you flick the thing down from the top and toss it into flight mode, you will be able to fly. How does that make any sense whatsoever?
Well, I think if we're going to build a drone future, we need to be able to trust the data infrastructure that everything sits upon. And I think without being able to trust it, and that includes multiple things. That's not just trusting the companies. That's also trusting the security of it, trusting the politics of it. I think trust is the underlying issue behind a lot of this sort of stuff. And if we're going to build this Skynet of the future, we need to be able to trust that underlying layer so that we can start building on top of that. And I think there are solutions out there. I think there's I think the technology nowadays is so advanced that actually we just need to sort of be looking at present day technology, not 1990s technology.
No, absolutely. We need to be thinking about technology that'll be out there in 2050. We need to be building for 2050, not from 1990.
And do you now see why Elon Musk is launching Starlink?
Yeah, absolutely.
But just because
absolutely,
it's all the satellites he's putting up to spy on you, James. But here's an interesting point. At what point does humanity start looking at what we've predicted in sci-fi? Because if any of you have but here's a serious point. You mentioned Skynet, James. We've for years we've had films that have predicted AI taking over, and there was a point where we were always going, that's so far in the future. If you now look at Atlas, if you now look at Spot, we're at that point now where actually this stuff is becoming a reality. And whilst we're years off, we're now only multiples of tens of years off. We're not at the point of, if you go back to the 60s when we had Star Trek and they were showing this stuff, it wasn't realistic. But we are now at the stage of going, if you take Battlestar Galactica, if you take all of these programs which has predicted it, we're now at the stage of going, we've predicted this for years and now we can see the technology is becoming a reality. At what point do we actually say, now is the time to actually stop with integration of UTMs? We're talking about UTM. UTM, we're going to align all traffic across each country. And then the next step of that is aligning that across the world. And then there's going to be a computer put in charge of that to say it can do it much better than a human. And then we're going to do the same with everything else. And then it all ends up at Skynet. And there is a point of where do we ever get to the stage of saying, actually, for the protection of people, integration isn't the right move?
There's a lot of people rattling that drum now. A lot of people are saying that now. We need to take a step back and just look at the implications of what we're doing. And Stephen Hawking himself, before he died, he was basically warning against the dangers of AI. I think Elon Musk has too when he's not smoking too much. It is a thing.
It is actually the top 150 scientists.
But are we not going to destroy the planet before we have to worry about it?
It is. That's a valid point.
But if you'd taken the same philosophy about cars, we'd still be like walking around with a red flag in front of a car, waving it around. So
hang on a minute. With cars, we're going back to what we did 100 years ago. We've been going back to electric cars.
Yeah, but cars are not integrated. Cars are not all linked. They will be. That's what 5G is for.
Rubbish about AI. I don't buy this whole AI rubbish because, yes, you could use AI to do really bad things. Don't get me wrong. But
it's not you using it, James. It's what it decides to do, and that's the point.
Yeah, but you have to program it to be able to allow it to do that in the first place. So there does need to be regulation around it. I've absolutely got no hesitation in saying that. But really, the point is, especially with things like drones and robots, AI should be used to train the algorithm to perform a task, and then you stop the training. You stop it. No more training. Now it can do what it was programmed to do. You can go through certification. You can go through verification and validation on that. You then have a known outcome of what that technology is able to do. Then if you want to go and improve that technology at a later stage, you take all of that data you've now gathered over the last 5 years of that algorithm or robot now operating in the world, and then you retrain the algorithm with that data, and then you do an upgrade. But you have to verify, validate, certify it again.
But okay,
so really, there needs to be you don't just let it loose to do whatever it wants. You need to like increment it in steps and check that every step of the way it's doing the right things.
What
That's
if
why
that
YouTube
AI
works so well.
But what if that AI doesn't want to stop what it's doing? And this is the point which it all comes round to. You said we're going to use the AI to program the software to make it better. And the man walks in and says, AI, you've done your bit, thank you. But there's the point where the AI decides it's not happy at being turned
You're
off.
making it a bit sentient, aren't you?
Well, but that's what this is where this ends up. This is the problem with this, and
You've got too many rovers in your workshop.
They're all
You're a little bit afraid, a bit nervous in there.
Now, my point is, we assume a connected world. Like, I love connected world. I've just spent the evening connecting my 3D printer to a Raspberry Pi on my work, so I can control it, so it will burn my workshop down whilst I'm in my house.
When you're away,
Whilst I'm away. That's what I've been doing tonight. I love things connected, but we assume it's always the right thing to do, but that isn't necessarily the case.
No, well, I think AI has some applications, and I think it can be very useful. I don't know if you've ever been typing out an email in Gmail, and it finishes your sentences for you. That's brilliant. I love it. That's the kind of AI
but it doesn't always get it right. The problem with AI is you cannot prove, because it's not a hand-coded algorithm, you cannot prove its correctness. It can have all sorts of subtle failures that you don't know until those particular circumstances arrive. So to put something as critical as air traffic control into that is to look at YouTube. I mean, it's supposed to be able to, there's so much stuff uploaded to YouTube every second that there's no way a human being could vet it for all the various things. So they have AI algorithms, but they keep getting it wrong because each situation is unique. And although it works 99.9% of the time, every 0.1% of the time it makes a failure. If that involves a drone crashing into an airplane, it's not an acceptable failure level.
It's quite easy. Hashtag no GA below 2K.
I don't believe that AI and aviation go together. I think you're talking a safety critical operation and AI. Those two things need to be separated. Safety critical and AI do not go together. What you can do, as I say, is train an algorithm. Say you wanted to train a collision avoidance algorithm to avoid another aircraft based on vision sensors or something like that. You could put it through a million different simulations and say, okay, right, well, train yourself to avoid the other aircraft as many times as you can. You could do that, and then you stop the training and you go and say, okay, let's test this in every single scenario that we can in a simulation environment and see if this algorithm works. And if it meets acceptable levels of safety, brilliant. That's AI trained. That's an AI trained algorithm. Sorry?
Tesla autopilot. Exactly what you've described. And look, there's still people dying.
Yeah, but that's because they're not operating it correctly.
Yeah, but you're always going to have those minority of cases. And
that's what I mean. You can't prove every case. For something to be certified safe, you must prove every case that it works satisfactorily. AI, you cannot do that because you're not programming the algorithm. It is creating its own algorithm from its data source. And that means it'll always be imprecise, just like people. So you can't use that in a safety critical situation, as Tesla are finding out to their cost.
I somewhat agree, but I think the point is that you test it. So the problem comes is when you go and get to the point of an AI algorithm where it's evolving over time, that the decision it makes on one day is different to the decision it would make on the next day in exactly the same situation. That's when you have a problem, because you no longer have an algorithm which is predictable. And for something to become certified, it needs to be predictable. And then you can actually, essentially a neural network is just basically a bunch of maths with numbers in it. It's a network with numbers in it, basically, and it makes decisions as it goes through the network, and it's just maths, and then it comes out the other end and spits out an answer. That can be proven. It's just an advanced form of PID tuning, really. If you think about it, it's just a way of tuning when you buy your Argicopter and you go and do the sort of roll and pitch tuning, it's doing that itself, and you can't actually predict how that tuning is going to turn out, because there's so many variables at play there. You cannot guarantee that if you tune it 100 times that it will come out with the same PID values every time. It will come out with different ones every single time. And this is the same kind of situation. But once you've got those PID values, you've then got a static set of data that you can ensure that the algorithm is deterministic. It's just a tuning mechanism, basically. That's the way I view AI. Now, the problem comes is when you use AI to, in real time, take environmental data and take your actions and consequences and then readjust it in real time, because then at that point the thing becomes unstable, because you cannot predict what that system is going to do in the future given different environmental conditions. So that's when our AI gets dangerous, and I would be completely against that. But as long as you train it and you stop that training before you deploy it, I don't have any issues with that.
The problem is, though, that you are assuming that there's only a fixed set of data that will ever be input to the algorithm. But in real world, there's an infinite set of data. You can't train it for every possibility. So the untrained cases, like, you can't provide, it hasn't learned that. Whereas an algorithmic approach, you can say, for example, if you take one number and multiply it by another number, it doesn't matter what numbers you put in, the result will always be the factor of those two numbers. It will be the multiplication of those two numbers. If you get AI involved, it may decide when you put two specific values in which haven't been learned, that it's going to subtract them. That's the problem. You can't test for every possible value because there is an infinite range of values. So a dynamic algorithmic approach, as comes from AI, can never give a proven deterministic result for all cases. And in the case of air traffic control, the permutations of cases are virtually infinite. So you can't use it in that situation.
That's how I felt it was when I was in air traffic. What I could do was virtually infinite.
The thing is, the environment is very chaotic. And so when you've got inputs that are coming from the environment, like of course your output's going to be chaotic because you've got chaotic inputs. But what you can do is you can constrain those and say, okay, these chaotic inputs, actually, as long as we create an algorithm where these chaotic inputs have very little effect on the outcome, then you can just add that kind of you can add that as uncertainty. So you will never be able to tell that an algorithm will be able to deal with 100% of cases. But what you will be able to say is it will deal with 99.99999% of cases.
Okay.
And there will be that one person who dies in a Tesla because they
that's all right then.
Yeah. So I refer to my Airline Pilots Association manual here, and their response is, it's only a matter of time before something happens. But I've been in AI. I was in AI back in the 90s, late 80s and 1990s, and it was interesting. There was one case study they did where they produced a neural network, and they trained it on a whole lot of pictures, which were basically a field which had cows and cars and tanks. They wanted the AI to be able to recognize a field that had tanks in it, so they trained it with a whole lot of data, and eventually the neural network could pick with 100% accuracy the pictures that had tanks in them. And they thought this was fantastic until someone pointed out to them that, hang on a minute, all the pictures with tanks in them were on sunny days and all the others were on cloudy days, and it was actually picking up shadows. And they tested it, and that was the case. So they thought they were getting one result, but it was nothing like, the reason for that result was nothing like what they expected. And in fact, if they put a tank in a field on a cloudy day, it didn't find it. And again, it's just so many variables, and you can't use a non-deterministic system to safeguard something that involves human life. It's just Tesla autopilot.
Is it really, is at the end of the day, is it really worth, do we want to live in a world where it may or may not work to deliver this coffee to our front lawn? I know that drone is not necessarily going to kill us, but it does strike us a little bit mad. Surely this technology is actually moving forward, going to give us a little bit more time, not that sort of technology, but other technologies to telework. Here we are, we're all around the world now. That big virus that we're not allowed to mention, this is not affecting travel to this destination at the moment. Even in Wales, it can reach. And so that's pretty amazing. So won't we all change the way we work and have time to slow down? Surely that's really what's going to hopefully going to happen if the world's going to be a better place. Not get a fast coffee, but slow down and have time to smell the flipping coffee. That's what we need to do, isn't it?
I do agree with Bruce to some degree with there. It's actually, I think AI is a lazy man's option to creating an algorithm. When I was doing my work at Loughborough University, I basically looked at geometric approaches to collision avoidance systems, and basically did all of the maths and verification and validation and formal proofs behind trying to understand different collision avoidance scenarios and why crashes could happen, where the weak points were, and that was all based on geometry. I looked at the AI algorithms. It's like, well, you can't make any sense of them because like they're just they kind of appear random. They're so complicated. The actual maths behind which goes from input to output is so complicated that trying to verify that is almost impossible. Whereas geometry is, you know, most people can understand geometry. If you've got, you know, done a little bit of maths in your time, geometry makes sense. You know, people can see that visually. But it's hard, you know, even for a simple 2D collision avoidance scenario, actually defining the maths which proves that an algorithm would be safe is really hard. So when you start getting to these scenarios where, I don't know, you're driving along and you're saying, okay, I'm not going to crash into a person, defining the maths and the logic and the geometry behind such what sounds like a simple statement of I'm not going to crash into a person is actually really, really hard to do. And this is where the limits of sort of, you know, real sort of formal based methods start falling down. And you have to start looking at alternative methods and simulation based exercises. And really, you know, simulation is only as good as the inputs that you put into the simulation. If you put bad inputs in, then you get, you know, bad outputs out. So, you know, like you said, with your shadows versus, you know, dark days versus light days, if all your inputs are bad, then you're not going to get a good output from your data set. So there is a lot of work going on in that area, but I don't see any way how we can progress without that kind of work going on, because
look,
it's so complicated.
I think we're overthinking this whole situation. We're assuming that when drones collide, it's a bad thing. Why don't we just mandate that all drones have big fluffy foam bumpers and shrouded propellers? It doesn't matter. They can play dodgems, and then no one gives a damn if they bang into each other. They'll eventually find their way there. We get rid of all this UTM crap, and there's all, you know, that's the simple solution. Because if we produce a tech solution based on today's technology, by the time we implement it, it'll be like ADS-B. It'll be out of date anyway. So let's just deal with the tech we've got. Simple, bang into another drone. We don't care. Just move on to the next one. I've just solved the world's problems. Call me Greta.
Again, it's just a solution looking for a problem, isn't it? It's
well, it sounded like what you were describing there was the EASA's A2 category, which basically is a big flying puffy pillow. If it crashes into someone, it can't hurt them. So basically, it has to be a flying pillow.
Get Richard back on. He needs to refresh our understanding.
He does, Richard. Yeah. He does. Yeah, but Richard, of course, he doesn't call it unmanned, does he? He calls it unified. Unified. He is seeing a 5G world where the delivery truck is talking to the delivery drone and making sure that they both arrive at the pad at the same time to swap over whatever they're going to do. And so, yeah, I mean, he's seeing a very big 5G unicorn-enabled world, I guess.
But he is evil, you know. As much as we like Richard, he is the devil reincarnated, and he's
a ginger, isn't he?
He's going to result in us all going to hell.
Hang on a minute. This is all going.
Now, we like Richard, but that's why we give him abuse. But he's evil reincarnated, isn't he?
Is he?
I'm not really bought into the whole 5G thing.
You're shilling for him, Gas, so we have to add balance, right?
Oh, I see. Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's 5G for ginger, isn't it?
5 of them. No, this is terrible. That's terrible. I think that's a bit of a sign, dear viewer. I think it's a bit of a sign. And we've been going out for 2 hours 16 minutes. Goodness gracious me. And we're not monetized either. Yeah, we're going to go as well.
Was there anything else? The viewer.
All the viewers left an hour ago.
What I'm trying to understand is what with this 5G stuff, what actually is it attempting to do? Because as far as I'm aware, the range of these things is limited, to say the least.
Yes.
I'm like, I know it's like,
your brain.
I know it's like the new AI buzzword, but like what is it actually going to be used for? I get it. If I'm in like London and I want to like download a high definition video, we won't get into the details of that.
Interested, James?
I can do that in a matter of seconds. But like, you know, a drone generally, the whole point of drones, the next stage of drones, is to fly far away from things. And if you're using a communication link which relies on you being close to things, the two kind of are like oxymorons to each other, surely, aren't they?
Well, 5G has a huge span of spectrum, and it's long, it's close range and long range. It's a ubiquitous broadband wireless network. Basically, that's all it is, just a faster one.
So it will do long range.
I gather there are some frequencies right down at the bottom which will give you a reasonable range if you're outside of the sort of the short
When you
range
say
devices.
the bottom, you mean 8 and 900 megs? That's all
Yeah,
bottom.
yeah.
Below.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, fair enough. No, I kind of thought it had a range of like 300 or 400 meters, and I was kind of like, well,
But that's just the bits that'll fry your brain. They're specially designed to fry your brain. Yeah, just tinfoil hat time for the 5G. So much misinformation out there. Oh.
Yeah. All right then. Going once, going twice. Anything else we've seen this week we should talk about? Just say no. Dear viewer, thank you very much.
Oh, he's shilling again.
What? For the dear
No,
viewer?
not you. Him.
Oh,
Him.
who's shilling?
Yeah, go to his website, hobocam.net. It's all there.
Hobo World.
Hobodrones.com.
Yeah, Hobo Drones.
DJBruce.com.
DJ Bruce, yeah, spinning those tunes. Dear viewer, thank you very much. 2100 GMT next week. But something else probably will have happened. Some outrage will have happened from the people. Be safe whatever you're doing this week. We look forward to seeing you there. Gentlemen, thank you very much to those that have gone as well. See you all. Cheers. Bye-bye. Goodbye. Cheers, everyone.
Coronavirus.
Bye.